Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Lisa did not like to be late for such grand events as the student party. But at the last moment, when she was ready to jump out the door, her mother held her back. Wendy considered it her sacred duty to have a talk with her before each outing. This obligatory part consisted of several recommendations, which Lisa had to listen to carefully and then absorb. Wendy said in a ministerial tone, "Where are you going?" Lisa thought doubtfully. That's it. Now the educational work will begin. But out loud she said, "Mommy, I warned you 2 days ago that tonight we have a theme night. In honor of Valentine's Day, there will be a disco concert program and other nice things." The girl started to grab the doorknob, but her mother stopped her with a shout. "Wait, I understand everything, except one thing. Why did you say that as if you were going not to a cultural event, but to a pub? How many times have I told you not to water that skirt? It pulls your ass in obscenely. Mom, everybody wears skirts like that today. You too, at one time wore what was considered fashionable. That suit Daddy and I gave you will fit you better. And as far as fashion goes, I'll tell you one thing, we didn't wear that kind of gaudy stuff. You cannot spit on yourself what does not suit you, such her liver, as now you can afford a tall girl with impeccably straight legs, and you're not doing so well in that regard." The mother slid an appraising glance at her daughter's figure, and after that, she herself took off from her shoulders a fur coat, frivolous pink color. "Go change. I'll wait." Lisa could hardly hold back tears of despair, but it was useless to argue with her mother. What hurt her most was that Wendy had so unapologetically reminded her daughter of her defects. It was true that Lisa's legs were a little out of alignment at the knees, but this flaw was only noticeable on close inspection. The girl muttered under her breath so that her mother could hear her remark. "Any mother supports her child, and you always try to humiliate me." Wendy already more peacefully noticed, not grumbling. "And thank me later. You can thank me later for the lessons in good taste. You are already 18, and it's time to decide on a style that maximally corresponds to your inner content. After all, this is the secret of a harmonious image of any self-respecting woman." Wendy still long spread on this hot topic, and Lisa in her room tried to pull a suit over the clothes, which greatly annoyed her mother. This disguise technique Lisa had to use frequently, as such clashes with her mother occurred regularly. The operation went well, and she adjusted her hair in front of the mirror just in case she wanted to see if she could get her hands on my hair. Lisa ran out into the hallway and froze under her mother's gaze. But Wendy was pleased with her appearance this time. "This is different. Couldn't you have dressed like that in the first place? A nice suit that suits you. You've turned into something else, haven't you? Run along, or I'll be late for my party." Knowing her mother's temper, Lisa had thoughtfully packed a pair of mind-blowing shoes. Wendy didn't even realize her daughter had a fashionable pair of shoes. This hit the girl bought with the money that her grandfather allocated her on the occasion of her majority. At the thought of Trevor, it warmed her heart, but there was no time to be distracted by sentimental moments and put on a fur coat. The girl finally left the apartment unhindered. Immediately from the entrance, she turned on the 4th speed and ran to the administrative building of the medical college, where she studied, but fast movement was hampered by icy ice, and she twice almost fell. Despite her speedy way of traveling, the girl was late for the start of the event. The festival was already in full swing, and she hastily changed her boots for fashionable shoes and hurried to the top, where young people were having a good time. The music was blaring at full blast. The high society made it impossible to focus on one thing at a time. Lisa stood at the entrance for a long time, trying to find at least one familiar face among the dancers. Suddenly, someone took her by the arm and pulled her to the center of the room. Lisa looked up and saw Max's smiling face. "Hi, where have you been? I waited for you at the entrance for half an hour. And then I thought you weren't coming." The girls, as loud as her buddies, screamed at me. My mom held me up. "She's worse than any probation worker I've ever had. Why were you expecting me?" I don't remember you making a date with me. Max was just nodding his head or something. Whether he was agreeing with her, or is it the rhythmic movements adding to the background music? All pretty girls have memory problems. When we crossed paths in the cafeteria yesterday, I told you I wanted to go out with you. Lisa couldn't remember the incident and remained silent. She tried to catch the rhythm of the moving dance, but she was hindered by her partner's gaze. Max moved beautifully and still had time to look at the girl brazenly. But even that was not enough for him. And after a few minutes of contemplation of his partner, he roughly attracted her to him and whispered hotly in her ear, "Listen, you so suits this strict costume in the style of Mary Poppins. You look so cute in it, and I'm just wearing a vest." It was only now that Lisa realized that she hadn't had time to take off the costume, which was hiding another outfit underneath. She didn't even want to imagine how Max would have reacted to that provocative outfit. A thought flashed through her mind. Her mom was right about thinking before putting on an outfit that was too revealing. Several times the girl tried to slip away from her overly insistent partner, but Max wouldn't let go of her hand. One popular track was replaced by another, and she had to dance. But most of all, the girl was embarrassed by her beau's vulgarities and compliments. He constantly whispered in her ear something that made her blush. But the young man regarded this as the girl's readiness to continue to get closer. When the DJ announced a short break, Max looked his partner intently in the eye and smirked cheekily. He asked Lisa, "How would you like to continue the evening somewhere in the United States? After all, it's Valentine's Day." Without waiting for a positive answer, Max put his arm around her waist and tried to kiss her. But Lisa pulled away abruptly. "Max, you're wasting your eloquence on me. While you have time, look for another girl. I'm sure there will be someone who will gladly accept your proposal." The young man did not want to admit his defeat and asked loudly enough that you break. "All you build yourself up, and yourself, probably, only thinking how to get off with a guy like me. Max, you think too highly of yourself. And besides, I'm not really into that kind of cocky." It was, as they say, a college thing. Level 80 bummer. The quiet whispering turned to loud talking, and a couple more started to pay attention to the argument. Lisa wanted to leave quietly, but humiliated by her refusal. Max did not want to let the girl go. One more minute, and a light verbal altercation would have turned into a conflict. But the situation was saved by the timely appearance of Betty. Lisa's friend had a unique ability. She could assess the situation at a glance. Now she also turned on her intuition and realized that the situation would not be resolved without her intervention. Betty grabbed Lisa's arm. "Where are you? I've been looking for you for an hour. We're all here. Come on, let's go." Betty dragged her friend to the other end of the hall, and the classmates began to greet Lisa with cheers from afar. The unpleasant residue from her interaction with Max quickly disappeared, and the girl never once looked in the direction where the rejected admirer had remained. In the circle of her friends, she felt completely safe. But this environment was also nice in that there was Rod within a stone's throw of her. Lisa liked this tall guy with unremarkable looks. Rod was studying to be a dental technician, but he often dropped in on them. Many people thought that these visits were related to Lola, who was considered the first beauty in their group. Lisa was also sure of this version and tried to come to terms with the idea that the guy she liked had chosen another girl. She even now tried to find among the familiar faces a recognized beauty. But alas, she was nowhere to be seen. From Betty did not escape her friend's confusion. She informed her in a whisper of recent events. "If you're trying to find the needle, you're trying in vain. Our queen has warmed up the student party, and even at the beginning of the event left with some major in a cool car. So seize the day." Lisa also whispered to her friend Betty, "Please, no innuendos. You know very well that I am not one of those who act like a hyena. And if I were you, I'd forget my principles. Rob's a good guy, not like his brother." "Who do you mean?" "That bastard I saved you from 5 minutes ago. I didn't know Max was Rob's brother. I just found out. They're not siblings, they're cousins. And as far as I know, They don't get along very well. Lisa didn't pay much attention to this news. She never supported the habit of some girlfriends to discuss other people's family problems. She had enough to do in her own family nest. Just fighting with her mother took energy and nerves, and Lisa was also responsible for her grandfather's welfare. However, Trevor's care was more of a pleasure than a nuisance. In the company of peers of the girl did not want to think about sad things, and the rest of the evening passed cheerfully and interestingly. When the event was over, the students all pile and noise, and songs to the guitar fell out into the street. For about an hour they wandered around the city center, and the townspeople or popular songs about love. Then everyone slowly began to disperse. Rob volunteered to escort Lisa out. I don't know your exact address, but they say the neighborhood where you live isn't exactly peaceful, so I'm just gonna have to walk you out. If you don't mind, of course. Rob looked at Lisa and his eyes danced off the typewriter. The girl smiled too. This is the first time I've heard that I live in a creepy place. I even got scared, and I gladly accept your offer. They walked leisurely along the snowy streets and chatted about nothing. Suddenly, Max blocked their way. With his usual swagger, he began to reproach his brother. This meeting, I wondered who dared to steal my girlfriend. Turns out it was you, little brother. Rob cut him off. Max, stop making a fool of yourself. You have a bad habit of making a circus in public places. You got a bad habit of getting in my way too. Well, I won't spoil your evening. We'll talk about manners later. Max abruptly made a full turn, but slipped and almost fell. Everyone is against me today. Having a bad day, Yu looked at his brother once more, then at Lisa, and whistled. The familiar motif disappeared into the alley. Rob felt embarrassed in front of the girl because of his brother's ugly act. Don't mind him. There's a saying about a child without an eye for a reason. Max never used to make such a pass at me. We were even good friends for a while, but then he was replaced. That's why I try to stay away from him. Our mothers rarely talk to each other anymore either. It's been a black cat for a long time. If they meet now, it's only at the funerals of their closest relatives. Lisa realized that her comments in this situation were unnecessary. She kept silent the rest of the way. They said goodbye warmly at the entrance of her house, without making any arrangements for a future meeting. But the next day, Rob showed up at their building during a big break. Lisa spotted him as she hurried to her lecture. The girl nodded a greeting and wanted to go on her way, but Rob asked her to stick around. Lisa, we didn't break up very well last night. Why don't we go out tonight? Or go to the movies? The girl's heart was racing, but she tried not to show her excitement. We could go out. I just have to be sure to show up at home. Rob smiled. Strict control. Sort of. My mom tracks my every move and thinks it's the right thing to do. Good. Chuckles. We'll keep your mother's best interests in mind. Meet me at 6:00 p.m. all right. Lola walked past, head held high, but she didn't even dignify the guy who had been eyeing her for so long. But Lisa bumped into her in the doorway of the auditorium. Lola saw her rival with a glare and remarked sneeringly that she had already picked her up before I could throw it. In principle, I don't mind. You can use it. Guys like Rob are not my type. Lisa didn't even take offense at her classmate, because she knew that she had only clothes and entertainment on her mind. Betty, as always, saw and heard everything. She looked disapprovingly at the bun and said very loudly, "There are some people in our ranks who happen to be used to categorizing people, and I think that such specialists should not be allowed near the sick." But the mare with skin and on her this remark did not affect. Not a single muscle on the doll-like girl's face, and only the cold blue eyes glared defiantly at Betty. And if that's a pebble in my garden, you're trying in vain. Because I'm not much affected by such moral lessons. Yes, I'm really not going to carry around a duck or an enema. That's a pleasure I'll leave to the likes of you. Betty, your name's good, but the rest of it doesn't fit. After a brief pause for convincing, she shared her plans with the same arrogance. You girls are so primitive, and I truly sympathize. After all, unlike you, I will be working in a place that you dare not even dream of." Lola gave Betty another glance, then looked at Lisa. "Keep in mind, any minute I could blow the whistle and the dog would come running after me." Her rival wanted to take a jab at Lisa, but she pretended not to hear her last words. All the girl's thoughts were centered around her upcoming date with Rob, and she didn't even catch the essence of the lecture. Every day the smell of spring was more and more palpable in the air. This incomparable aroma stirred the imagination and made young hearts beat more often, students of the final year of medical college. Neither were strangers to such excitement. Most of the girls sat in the lectures with absent looks, and the teacher tried to get through to their minds. Molly talked monotonously about the high purpose of nursing. A nurse was and remains the main assistant of a doctor. And you, my dears, should understand what responsibility will soon fall on your shoulders. Unfortunately, this understanding sometimes comes late. For example, now you are sitting on your mind somewhere very far away. And then, when new personnel come to the workplace, there is an anecdotal situation when one young specialist knows how to put an enema and the other where to put it. And this is not an anecdotal case at all. Molly knew how to keep the attention of the audience, and after her words, all those who were in the clouds returned to the ground. Laughter spread through the audience. One of the girls even dared to add to the collection of cool flavors of young doctors. "Molly, that joke is long out of date. If you'd like a more recent one." One of your students recently surprised the entire medical community. It happened during internship in one of our city clinics, when the post nurse asked to collect tests in one of the wards of the department. The trainee, not thinking long, grabbed a basin and went to the specified ward. The thing is that all the men in the ward were subject to examination, and the girl decided to collect biological fluid from them in bulk. There was a peal of laughter in the classroom. Lola jumped out of the classroom with the words, "You are all assholes, and I hate you all. Are you laughing? Are you laughing?" While we have the chance, Molly urged everyone to calm the girl down. An unpleasant story can happen to anyone. That's why you shouldn't take your fellow man's blunder to ridicule. Perhaps the nurse incorrectly explained the task to the trainee. The teacher interrupted the girl who had previously told the blunders. In vain you, Molly Lola, are defending. The reason for her frequent ups and downs is that she does not think it necessary to look at least occasionally in textbooks. And then these specialists go into hospitals and treat patients. I think the problem of low qualification of novice specialists is very relevant today. By the way, it fits perfectly into the framework of your lecture. I do not want to humiliate anyone here. It's just a shame, so to speak, for the honor of the uniform. Molly had to admit that the student was right, and I dare to bring up the student's mishap. Betty, said Lisa in a low voice. Can you imagine what will start tomorrow at our college? Lisa was intrigued by this phrase of her friend. I think the tick will dig up on Mila. I don't think, I'm sure. Do you know who Lola's dad is? No, I'm not interested in knowing. And you should. Her mom works at the Ministry of Education, and her dad runs the entire pharmacology department. Such smart people have such a clueless daughter. It's a sad fact, of course. But I truly feel sorry for our Molly. She's really one of the best teachers. The girls were still cracking up a little on extraneous topics because the brain refused to perceive such serious material as the basics of the sister case. Barely the bell rang, the future medics flocked and shoved out of the classroom. Betty pushed her friend to the side and pointed her hand toward the hall. Look already, and poured her resentment into the first returning vest. Lisa turned to the side where she did not look away, watching the girlfriend, and saw Max comforting Lola. This touching scene made no impression on her. But Betty, with a sneer, said, You don't know they're dating. No, I'm not interested. Right? Why would you look in other people's windows when there's a light shining in your own? Did I almost forget that you and Ra are having an affair? Honestly, I envy you. Lisa winked playfully at her friend. Like you don't have a date. Don't join me. And anyway, I think it's a little early for us to think about a serious relationship. Personally, I'm going to continue my studies in the near future. My dream is to become a doctor. I like endocrinology. Betty rolled her eyes dramatically. Oh no, I've had enough of studying. I've listened to enough brainwashing for 2 years. My main concern right now is getting my internship published. Betty stopped the class at half a word and looked at her friend expressively. Speaking of birds, do you know where we're going to be sent to do our hours? Lisa shrugged her shoulders, which meant she was indifferent to the question. Yes, I don't really care, but I've heard that our course assigns emergency hospitals and city clinics. It's not unusual. They do it every year. It'd be nice if they did. I heard some of the kids are going to be sent to the countryside. Relax, that's only for paramedics and dentists. By the way, Rob was also sent to the district hospital. Goldie laughed hilariously. And what will a budding dental technician do there? Get his hands on designing statutory jaws for old people. You're holding it in for nothing. You have a wrong idea about the people of the hinterland. My grandpa, FYI, lives in a place like this and enjoys our medical care. And last year he got new teeth, even though he spent all his savings on it. But he is satisfied. And the teeth look like real teeth. Now my grandfather eats everything with pleasure. He used to eat nothing but soup and cereal. You're lucky you have someone to visit. I have all my relatives concentrated in one place. It's not even interesting. As all hot topics were exhausted, the girls headed for the locker room. Betty was tidying her hair in front of the mirror and suddenly remembered the stunning news. We've been talking a lot, you and I, and the most important thing slipped my mind. Anyway, in case you didn't know, I'm authorized to tell you that we're planning a graduation celebration. You mean graduation, but that's a long way off. My friend was expertly applying raspberry-flavored gloss to her plump lips. No, that's not what I mean. People want to get together before their internships. After all, for us, the educational process is essentially over, and I'm a little sad. How do you feel about that idea? Positive. But depending on where and when to gather tomorrow, or the day after tomorrow will be known. But we've got a campground in mind. It's not far from the city. Kathy's dad runs it. And when we leave at the beginning of May, everything falls out very well there and the holiday weekend. So we're looking at 3 days of mind-blowing partying. And Kathy's dad promised us the lowest possible rate. Lisa's mood immediately dropped and there was no escaping Betty's gaze. This change. What are you doing? Girlfriend's gone soft. Financial problems. Money's not the problem. It's something else. If it's just for 1 day, it's not a problem. But 3 days is a problem. You know my mom, Lisa, you're not a little girl anymore. Talk to your folks. Seriously, don't let them cut off your oxygen. I'll try, but I'm not sure they'll let me go. See for yourself. Lisa thought Betty was upset with her. She herself had berated herself for being insecure and not being able to stand up for herself. But she couldn't stand up to her parents either. And it wasn't even because she was still completely dependent on them. It was the traditional upbringing. Lisa was used to her father and mother deciding everything important in her life. Lisa was not wrong in her assumptions. As soon as she hinted at a possible trip out of town with a group of fellow students, Wendy immediately cut her off. Don't even think about it. You're not going anywhere. Lisa whimpered. Mom, well, why, I'm an adult, and I have the right to do it myself. I don't deny it. You have the right to do whatever you want. But you, daughter, you don't know what a roller coaster life is. I don't have anything against hanging out with friends, as long as it's an adult supervised activity. Will you have a teacher with you? I don't know. Gold didn't say anything, but one of our girls' fathers works at the campground. One adult can't handle a whole bunch of right-wing kids. The girl's father, James, did not hear the beginning of the conversation, but caught the main point, decided to intervene. He addressed his wife, Wendy, in a joking tone. Maybe it's time to let your daughter go. I often get the impression that you keep Lisa like a dog on a short leash. The comparison angered the woman. James, don't you think you're hurting our girl even more with that comparison? Imagine what they're going to do on this very campground for 3 days. Wendy, but they're adults. You could say they're ready specialists. And then, we cannot with you, and you cannot guard our daughter for the rest of her life. Such control can have the most dire consequences. Lisa already knew in advance that her mother would be the winner. Her father always gave in to his wife, and he did it for the sake of peace in the family. So she didn't wait for the argument to end and went to bed. To be honest, she herself was not eager to go to unfamiliar places with a bunch of students. If there had been a flu in the company, then it would still be possible to grieve. But the girl's conscience was at ease, for she had made every effort to persuade Wendy. But in the morning, an unheard-of miracle occurred. Her mother herself came to her room and with a puzzled expression on her face said, "Daddy and I talked yesterday and decided that you could go away with your friends. You don't have to fight off the collective." The girl rushed to her mother and squealed with joy, "Mama, you are the best parents in the world. I promise to behave myself." Lisa immediately called Betty to make her friend happy. She had been walking in high spirits all day, but late in the evening, the joy was also suddenly cut short. Just as it came unexpectedly, the daughter received a call from Trevor. Wendy talked to her father for a few minutes and then called her daughter. "Lisa, the idea of you grandfather personally asks." No sooner had the girl picked up the phone from her mother than she heard the old man grumbling unhappily. "Lisa, why have you forgotten your grandfather? I'm sitting here alone in four walls, and I don't know what to do with myself." The girl tried to justify herself. "Well, I came 2 weeks ago, so I was fine then. Now I'm suffering from blood pressure or something else. You're a doctor. You'd have come and diagnosed me correctly." "Okay, Grandpa, I'll come as soon as I get a chance. And you go to the clinic tomorrow. You have good doctors there." Trevor shouted into the phone. "Don't give me advice. I know where to go myself. Tell me, granddaughter, why should I go to hospitals when we have our own doctor in the family?" "Grandpa, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a nurse, and I haven't gotten my diploma yet." "I don't care. Some nurses are smarter than doctors. When I was in the hospital, they had such smart girls working there." Lisa was surprised at her grandfather's assertiveness. Trevor had never allowed himself such methods of influence before. The girl listened to his speech and her mother watched her. Finally, Lisa put the receiver down on the machine. Wendy asked her grandfather. The lady did not even expect such a thing from him. It's not surprising. People change over the years, and our grandfather is 74. That's a very respectable age. What did Mom decide? Why are you asking so many questions? Of course I'm going to Grandpa's house. He's really lonely there. It's his own fault. If it weren't for his bad temper, how many times I've suggested he move to the city. But he won't even hear of it. Mom, there's something I don't know. Tell me, when you go to Grandpa's house, let him tell you his secrets. Believe me, he has so many secrets, you could write a whole book." Until that day, Lisa had never thought that her relatives might have secrets of their own. Her parents had told her a lot about their past. Grandpa liked to share memories too, but all those stories only reflected the part of their lives they were proud of. After her mother's carelessly thrown phrase, the girl realized that there was another part that they themselves did not want to remember. Trevor had a strong character, like any man used to a simple life. After the untimely death of his beloved wife, Miranda, he was left to grow old alone. At first it even suited him, but over the years it became increasingly difficult and dreary to live as a lone wolf. But most of all, he was worried about the thought that he might one day fall asleep and not wake up in his two-room apartment. He reproached his daughters with this possible scenario. "You have all gone to different cities, and I'm the only one here. God forbid, I'll die. No one will ever know. They'll lie there for a year until the neighbors sound the alarm." Kelly's eldest daughter reacted strongly to such remarks. "Father, we've offered you so many times to move, and Wendy has good conditions. My husband and I have a big house, and we live alone now that the kids are gone. So your claims are unfounded." The old man wasn't going to back down. He was making his main argument. "I don't want to live in your penthouse. I'm used to my apartment. Kelly was shocked at the truth and her guess. So you're suggesting that one of us drop everything and move in with you? Yes, that's exactly the format I'd like, and I don't see any obstacles to its realization. That's when Wendy had to step in. Daddy, it's okay that my sister and I have husbands and children. A normal husband should be able to understand the difficulties. I'd understand if you were married for the first year, but you've been married for 20 years. Kelly is already a grandmother herself. She could have moved in with her father, and at least give your men a break from you. It was useless to convince the old man that such a mode of life was unnatural. Trevor had not particularly considered the opinion of his girls before, and in his old age he began to ignore their problems, practically the same way he treated his grandchildren. Kelly had 2 sons, but grandfather did not think very highly of them. Every chance he got, he reproached them for not listening to his advice when they were young. When Sam and Anthony were small, the grandfather dreamed that his grandchildren, like himself, would work on the land. Agronomist is a very respected profession. Such specialists are always in demand. You, Sam, would be very well suited for such a job. But you, Anthony, you have a penchant for iron. I've been watching you. You'd make a good mechanic. But the boys disobeyed the oldest of the family. Sam became a lawyer. Anthony chose to become a structural engineer. Trevor was very worried. His daughters heard a lot of unflattering statements on this subject from him. Probably for 5 years, the storm raged in the soul of the old man did not subside. Grandchildren repeatedly tried to establish relations with grandfather, but he did not go to the peace, although gifts from them accepted. After the loss of confidence in the Hares on the male line, the center of love of the old man shifted to Lisa, and the desire of his only granddaughter Lisa to become a nurse finally melted the ice in Trevor's heart. After all, his late wife Miranda also devoted her whole life to medicine. Well done, Lisa. If your grandmother were alive right now, she'd be very happy. After all, my Miranda was the most respected person in our village. People came to her day and night for help, and she never said no to anyone, except she couldn't keep herself safe. Or is it my fault she left me so soon? At this point, Trevor usually fell into melancholy, and sometimes he shed a tear. This time his grandfather began with a reminiscence too, but beforehand he issued a series of rebukes. When Lisa rang the doorbell, the old man began to reprimand her from the doorstep. If I hadn't called, you wouldn't have come at all. Nobody lives in the same skin. The threads from the same cup from which I drink the bitterness of this life. Lisa knew it was best to keep quiet during Trevor's opening speech. She quietly threw off her light cloak, ignoring the grandfathers and lamentations, headed for the kitchen. Checking on the stove, pots, pans. The girl asked, "Food. What should I cook? Do you have groceries? Or should I run to the store?" Trevor immediately switched to a more pleasant topic. Further, if you do not bother to go to the store, buy there something at your discretion for a long time, and the real soup did not eat something. If memory serves me correctly, you're under Nina's supervision. An old man, looking down, Nina doesn't come to me anymore. I sent her away. Lisa looked at her grandfather with all her eyes. Grandfather, of course, I have no right to lecture you, but you can't do that. You had a woman assigned to you in social services. You kicked her out. Then your buddy's granddaughter took care of you. You said goodbye to her too. Now it's not you who's shown your aunt the door. How are you going to go on living? You can't be so unloved. Trevor listened to my granddaughter, head bowed low, scolding me. I can't help myself. That's the kind of temper I have. All because I'm green with boredom. I wish you'd move in with me. The girl hugged the old man. Grandpa, don't start. Because I'm torn right now. But imagine for a moment what I do here. Men with hope looked into the eyes of his granddaughter. But your grandmother worked here all her life and never complained. Lisa did not want to upset the old man with a sharp refusal and turned the conversation in a more positive direction. Okay, Grandpa, I'll run to the store, and then I'll make you your favorite soup. We still have plenty of time to talk. The The girl headed into the cramped hallway, and the old man followed the family man, followed by his granddaughter. I almost forgot. Have you stopped by the drugstore yet? Buy me some joint ointment. I can't get out of bed in the morning. Trevor took some new bills out of the dresser. Get yourself something nice too. I've been saving up for your arrival. You'll be at my place for a while. The old man looked at her with almost childlike hope, and Lisa realized that this was the question he was most concerned about. She kissed her grandfather. And I'm coming to see you for a whole week. If you haven't escorted me out before. A smile shone on Trevor's face, and the girl thought how little it takes for a man to feel happy. After a hearty dinner, the old man finally approved. He sat in the kitchen and watched his granddaughter put things in order. In contrast to him, Lisa was not satisfied. Grandfather had only 2 weeks to get this ear. It's not hard to wipe the dust once in a while. I'm sorry, old man. I'm forgetting what I was doing and what I should be doing. You're the best instead of telling your grandfather off. Tell me, how's your young life? The girl perfectly understood the trick of the grandfather, but decided to pretend that she did not notice it. Yes, everything is fine. Soon the internship will begin, and then I'll get a diploma. But for that I need to prepare. The old man waved his hand impatiently. Work and study are all fifths. You'd better tell me, how are you doing on the personal front? With whom? Or are you expecting a prince? Basically, I'm a grandfather. I don't believe in it for a long time, but maybe I have a good one. His name is Rob, and he's graduating from college this year too. Only he has a different major. He's a dental technician. Trevor with a tongue is a very good profession. Always a piece of bread and butter. Hang on to that kid. What kind of family does your Rob from? Lisa was confused. She'd never inquired about her beau's lineage. Grandpa, I didn't go into that kind of detail. All I know is that Rob has a brother who is a very unpleasant type. He goes to our college too, but I try to stay out of his way. The old man suddenly perked up. Why is that? Where did the antipathy come from? Lisa blushed. She didn't want to tell the unpleasant story that happened at the disco in February, but the old man guessed it himself. He was hitting on you. Sort of, but I solved it quickly. Max and Rob are cousins. Betty, my girlfriend, said their moms are. For what reason? I don't know. I don't need to know. Granddaughter's not always lucky enough to have relatives. You don't know. I had a brother too. Trevor sighed heavily and thought. By the strained expression on his face, the girl realized that she shouldn't pester her grandfather with questions. The thought flashed in her head that if he wanted to, he would tell her himself. But the old man, holding his back, left the kitchen. I'm going, granddaughter. I'm going to lie down my joints. I'm going to use the ointment you brought. Trevor disappeared into the bedroom and didn't show up until late afternoon. Lisa decided to take advantage of the opportunity to clean up the big room. She opened the balcony and the door, and fresh air rushed into the room. Trying not to make any noise, the girl dusted and laid out, scattered on chairs and armchairs, grandfather's things on the shelves of the closet. She didn't even notice how it started to get dark outside and was about to close the door to the balcony. How did the disgruntled landlord show up? Lisa, you wanted to kill me too. You let in a draft. My whole body is already aching. Grandpa, but you were resting. You could break your legs here. Don't exaggerate, because from your words it turns out that I'm the last one. It's cold here. Let's go to the kitchen. You put the kettle on, and I'll tell you about my brother. To be honest, I haven't been interested in his fate for a long time. I don't even know if he's alive or dead. Probably the latter. Andrew is 5 years older than me. He must be in his 80s now, if he's still alive. Aromatic tea, beautifully flavored, by the cup, was shared on the table. And Lisa, holding her breath, listened to the unusual love story that made siblings enemies forever. Trevor and Andrew's parents were simple people. Ben went through the entire war and was only lightly wounded once. Returning home, he went about his usual business, laboring from dawn to dusk in the field. At that time, There was a catastrophic shortage of equipment, and mechanizers themselves repaired tractors at night and went out to the field in the morning. Ben's wife worked on the farm, so the older children were responsible for the younger kids. But Andrew did not like this division of responsibilities, and he could not wait until the end of school. True, the parents did not oppose the desire of the eldest son to get an education. On the contrary, they praised their son's success in front of all acquaintances and neighbors. Our Andrew will definitely become a boss. He is such a serious guy, not like Trevor. Listening to such speeches, the younger brother was angry. The boy wanted to prove to the whole world, and especially to his older brother, that he was not worse than him. This competitive process lasted for several years, but Andrew was still more successful. After the institute, he returned to his native village, and he was immediately appointed deputy chairman of the state farm. The young specialist openly boasted of his position, trying to prick his younger brother, who together with his father fought in the field for Trevor's harvest. They were immediately taken into the army for the very reason that there was a shortage of people who could operate machinery so easily. The shortage of personnel was also affected by the consequences of the past war. Only at the age of 23 the guy was called up for service. Then he spent 3 whole years mastering the military business in the Baltic Fleet, and after demobilization he returned home. During Trevor's service in his native village, there were serious changes. There was a new 2-story club, and it was now possible to get to the village on a smooth asphalt road. There were changes in the family, too, as my mother told me at once. Our Andrew was going to get married. You had just been taken to the service. Like us, they sent a paramedic and after school. Miranda's name. Good girl. At first, Trevor didn't pay any attention to the news. He himself was burning with impatience to meet the girl who had seen him off and had been writing letters for almost 3 years. But his mother looked pityingly at her son. Hush, you don't have to go to Nancy. The boy was surprised. Mom, what are you doing? I've been waiting all 3 years for this day. The woman repeated stubbornly. I'm telling you not to go. Nancy, you got married and went to town. I guess she wanted to hide from the shame. I didn't expect such a trick from her. She was like a daughter to me. She used to visit us almost every day. And then she stopped. For almost 6 months, Trevor suffered this personal tragedy. He became withdrawn and even talked to his parents only when necessary. But one day the mechanic sent him into town. Trevor needs to get some spare parts for the machinery urgently from the warehouse. So I'm giving you my car for this purpose. But you must realize that every day counts. So make sure you get it done quickly. Trevor is accustomed to fulfill the assigned task and immediately went to the mountains. What was the guy's surprise when at the very warehouse where he was supposed to get the necessary parts for repair, he met the same Nancy, who did not wait for him. A wedding ring glowed on the young woman's finger, and this burned fire into Trevor's heart. He looked his former lover in the eyes for a long time. Then he asked, "Why didn't you write to me? It would have been fairer than marrying in secret." Nancy suddenly burst into tears. "Forgive me. Hush, my hasty marriage was a necessity. I had no other choice. So can you at least tell me now what happened? I'm not going to interfere with your family life, but at least I need to know the reason for your infidelity. You'll see. It's better if you don't know. I still don't understand how it happened." And the girl's frightened story, often interrupted by sobs. Trevor realized that his personal happiness had been interfered with by his older brother. When Trevor left for the service, Andrew courted Nancy for a long time, but their dates were secret, and no one knew about the fact that the older brother had stolen the bride from the younger. Nancy kept waiting for Andrew to propose. But then the beautiful Miranda appeared, and the lover began to avoid the girl. Nancy was ready to come to terms with her fiancé's betrayal, but to her horror she realized that she was expecting a child. Time flew inexorably, and she had to act decisively. One day the girl springs Andrew in a secluded place to tell him that he will be a father. But the man recoiled from her. "Nancy, leave me out of this. It can't be. After all, You and I have only twice had an unknown child by you. Such reproaches were painful to hear. And the unhappy girl begged Andrew, I had no one before you. You know that very well. I'm pregnant with you. But these pleas and tears did not hurt the guy. He also ruthlessly threw in the girl's face. Your tears, Nancy, will not help. You yourself know very well that I cannot marry you. Nancy seemed as if her heart had left her body. Why, Andrew? Nancy, what kind of silly questions are these? First of all, I can't marry my brother's girl. Second of all, I already have fiancés. You may have heard that I'm dating Miranda. And we're getting married soon. Nancy froze in place. Andrew was gone from her life forever. For weeks, the girl didn't leave the house and her parents feared for her health. She searched for a way out of the situation, but found no good solution. Nancy confided to Trevor that she had the urge to lay hands on herself. Had it not been for Jacob, she would have carried out that intention. But this guy, whom Trevor knew well, convinced the girl not to go to the extreme step. To me, or I had once proposed to marry him, and I agreed. We moved to the city right after the wedding. Trevor was worried about the most important question and the child where. Nancy started crying again. Perhaps it's all my own fault, or is it heaven's punishment? The boy was not born alive. All the way back, I silently thought only about what a bastard his own brother turned out to be. After all, he is, in fact, maimed to the wall of life. Now this cheerful girl is more like a mummy. He did not yet know what he would do, but he was firmly convinced that he would find a way to take revenge on his brother. Apparently, the heavens were also on his side. Just the day after the trip to town, Trevor accidentally injured his arm while repairing his tractor. Blood gushed from the open wound, and the men carried the lad to the dispensaries. From the mere sight of the wound, Trevor began to shake, but the paramedic reassured him to be patient. My dear, now I treated your wound, and then for the neck. And Miranda took up the needle. The guy passed out. I had to bring him back to consciousness. When he woke up, the girl was surprised. Usually men don't faint at the sight of blood. And you passed out right away. Trevor was ashamed. I'm sorry, I didn't expect it myself. I saw a lot of scares when I was in the Navy, but this is the first time it's happened to me. It's probably a reaction to the massive bleeding. Are you dizzy? Nauseous? To be honest, I really don't feel well. I was pretty nervous yesterday. My instructions are to send you to the hospital. Trevor, there's no need to resist. I'm resilient. I'll be as good as new tomorrow. All right, let's see what happens tomorrow, but we'll make a deal that you go home right now and go to bed. Well, I can't. I got a job. I can't talk about work until you're fully recovered. I'll write you a note. And now I'll call your brother. Andrew is your older brother. Miranda kept her promise, and 10 minutes later, Andrew arrived at the paramedic station. But instead of words of sympathy, Trevor received a torrent of insults. The older brother shouted at him, not choosing expressions. You idiot, you fool. The Almighty rewarded me with a brother. Admit it, did you do it on purpose to spite me? Now they're gonna use me in every meeting. Okay, if it was just about me, you've put our entire household in jeopardy. They're going to start proceedings now. They'll send a commission to rule that we're not following safety procedures. Miranda tried to stop Andrew's fiancé. What are you talking about? Your brother's in trouble. And instead of sympathizing with him, you insult the man. Such a misfortune could have happened to anyone, and to you too. Big Brother first said to Miranda in a strange tone, stop covering up the headiness, and in general, I think it is inappropriate to breed calves whose tenderness here. No sooner had the door closed behind the window than the parents burst into the paramedic station. The mother began to wail beside her son, and Ben offered Trevor assistance, leaning on me. Let's go home. You're scary to look at. White as a sheet. The paramedic escorted them to the exit and warned them to be sure to come back tomorrow for dressing. Trevor was on sick leave for almost 3 weeks. He went to the dressings every day and marveled at Miranda's ability to perform manipulations quickly and skillfully. They had a lot in common, and they could talk about nothing for a long time. But one day, this idyll was interrupted by Andrew. The older brother burst into the medical station during a routine procedure with a solemn look. He declared, "Which is exactly what I needed to prove. Caught you in the act." Sitting courtesy of Miranda didn't have to listen to reproach. "Andrew, leave the medical office. Are you interrupting my work? I'm already getting in your way." "Well, Miranda, I declare to you with all responsibility that I will not allow you to corrupt the population. I will report your unbecoming behavior to your superiors today. What are you doing in the workplace?" Trevor's arm wasn't quite healed yet, but he wasn't afraid to stand up for the girl. "Andrew, I don't care if you're the boss. If you don't clean this up right now, I'm gonna kick your ass." Perhaps it was this determination of the younger brother that brought Andrew back to earth. He looked angrily first at the girl, then at Trevor. "You still got it in for me. I don't forgive those who humiliate me." Andrew walked away. They sat in confusion for a long while longer. Trevor was the first to break the silence. "Martin, don't worry. It's all just threats. I know my brother. He won't go beyond words. Andrew, he's just trying to play tough. In reality, he's not calculating, and he won't go for it." Trevor was not wrong in his predictions. Andrew, he only made promises. The next day, he showed up at the paramedic station apologizing. "My dear, I'm sorry. I overreacted. I said a lot of mean things. It's all my brother's fault. He used to turn me on with his antics when I was a kid." The girl didn't even turn around. But when the man wanted to approach her, she firmly said, "Andrew, don't come near me. It's over between us. And it is good that you showed your nature before the wedding. You are not a good man, and I am afraid of you." The rejected suitor collapsed on his knees. "Mart, I'm sorry. It was a momentary lapse of judgment. Any man can lose his temper." "No, not anyone. I'll be honest with you. I didn't expect this from you. And no need for theatrics here. It won't change anything." Humiliated by Andrew's refusal, he left and never showed up at the paramedic station again. A month later, Trevor and Martin married at the village hall. The newlyweds did not plan to leave the village, but Andrew did not keep his word and began to take revenge on his brother. So the young family was forced to move to a neighboring region. In the new place, they were welcomed with open arms, and 5 years later, they received an apartment in a new house. Lisa was shocked by her grandfather's revelation. She had no idea what trials this man had to go through. After all, it must be very hard to disown your own brother. Trevor looked at his granddaughter with an inquisitive gaze. "Do you mean to ask if I was looking for a meeting with Andrew?" The girl only nodded in agreement, and the grandfather concluded his tale. "Perhaps it is cruel, but I did not want to see him. My greatest fear then was that it was you in the image of my brother." From the life of another girl. Soon, Andrew got into big trouble at work and left. He wrote to his parents, but I didn't read those letters. Then things started to change in the country. And as far as I know, the brother became a businessman. A cry of pain in my lower back. The old man took a thick album out of the dresser drawer. At first I had the urge to burn all the pictures of my brother, but then I changed my mind. "Here, look here, we were photographed together on my shipment." Lisa carefully took the yellowed old snapshots in her hands. "You two look so much alike." "Yes, my granddaughter even confused us sometimes, but 5 years of age difference is still a big deal. Grandfather, be honest, if you had the chance, you'd like to see your brother." The old man lowered his head again, as if on a clean floor. There was an answer to this important question. "I don't even know, Lisa, what to tell you. I've been thinking a lot about my past life and my present life. I guess I could forgive Andrew now. In my heart, I forgave him a long time ago. And as for seeing him, I don't think he's alive. My parents died, and I never found out. Where's the brother?" Grandpa, after this conversation, as if immediately by nickname, Lisa even worried about his state of health. But the next day, Trevor already complained about the life of neighbors and inattention of daughters. So the girl decided that it was better not to bring back his memories. The beginning of practice was marked by one not quite pleasant event. Golden was sent to the regional hospital and Lisa to the city polyclinic. But the unpleasant situation was that there also got the hated Lola. Max has already managed to get used to the department of the medical institution and decided to conduct a tour for the girls. The guy met them at the entrance and looked at Lisa with undisguised gloating. "I want to advise you young girls not to show your character here. The polyclinic has a long-established team, and the old-timers are reluctant to accept newcomers into their ranks. That's why the main rule here is to keep a low profile." Lola cheerfully noted Max not to stir up mud. "Such problems are eliminated. Just need to cover a good field, and everything will be tip-top. There is not a single case of refusal of freebies in history." Lisa had been stunned before by a classmate's language, and she couldn't keep her mouth shut. "Lola, if you're going to communicate with patients in your own language, you're going to need an interpreter." Lola, as usual, looked down at Lisa. "Are you the smartest? Or are you showing off for Max? Maybe it bothers you that I'm dating him." The girl calmly answered neither. "I don't care about Max at all. I'm more concerned with practice now, and I know well the public that visits the clinics. They are mostly old people, children, and women. Eka, Ms. Know-It-All. Personally, I can do without your consultation, and in fact, I do not plan to stay here for a month." She promised to arrange for me to spend the entire internship at his friend's clinic. Lola and Max moved on down the corridor, and Lisa decided to leave the company. The young man asked Lisa, "What are you standing there for? Let's catch up." "Thank you, but I'd rather walk the floors myself. It'll be safer for everyone." "Lola, meet me at the superintendent's office." The girl reached the end of the long corridor, and she completely lost the desire to go up to the third floor. She went back and waited for the head of the department to appear. Soon, the intern noticed. Energetically stride along the corridor stocky middle-aged man. He was smiling. "Oh, a new addition. We've been waiting for you for a long time. We have a critical shortage of specialists at our stations. Nurses have to work in emergency mode and serve 2, and sometimes even 3 sites." The head opened the door of his office. "Come in and let's get acquainted." He extended his hand to Lisa. Lisa made a reciprocal gesture. "Lisa, I'm not the only one who was referred to you. There's another girl coming in now." "That's fine. There's no time for a warm-up. So we're going to assign you to experienced sisters right away. Your job is to listen to your mentors, do what they say, but we're sure there won't be any problems. After all, you and without 5 minutes ready nurses." The head's optimistic speech was interrupted by the appearance of Lola. She slipped neatly through the open door and asked angrily for Lisa. "Sorry, I'm a little late. I was familiarizing myself with the polyclinic." Nick repeated what Lisa had said. But Lola listened to the superintendent inattentively and even tried to make eyes at him. But the man did not pay attention to the flirtation of the brightly painted girl. He only warned girls, "We have a very different environment here. Therefore, I ask you to dress in full compliance with the requirements of our institution, and bright makeup is not welcome here either." Lola poked, but said nothing. Nick called for the head nurse. Not more than a minute after his call, and a stately woman of about 45 years old entered the office with a brisk gait. "Yes, Nick." The superintendent briefly recounted to the assistant. "What is her task?" "Adriana, I would like to ask you to help the girls to settle in. Hopefully, they will like our clinic and express their desire to stay with us." The head nurse smiled welcomingly. "Let's go, girls. I'll bring you up to speed, and then together with me you'll go to the action zone." The new Adriana looked at her carefully again. "I said something wrong." Lola poked forward into her lower lip, signifying the highest degree of her displeasure. "I have the impression that we are not in a medical facility, but in a soldier's barracks." The head nurse took the girls under her arms, but before doing so, she closed the door of the chief's office tightly. That's what my dear girls nail on your pretty insects, that in any medical institution, the main thing is discipline and subordination. That's why we have a regiment akin to the army. If someone doesn't like it, you should change careers before it's too late. I understand what I'm saying. Lola lowered her eyes, but her plump lips continued to whisper something. Lisa had to answer for two. I understand, Adriana. Good. Then the young guard will follow me. A quarter of an hour later, they were already sitting in the car, and the nurse was voicing the plan of further actions. So, my girls, I have assigned you to the areas where I am now temporarily replacing the nurses. Your appointments will begin this evening. Before that, we need to make a round of the bedridden patients, mostly elderly people who need special care. Lola blurted out, and we were told in college that all patients should be treated equally. Adriana gave Lola another unkind look. You must not have been listening very well. In medicine, we practice an individual approach, and district nurses have to be a bit of a psychologist. Lola poked out of habit, and the mentor decided to put the insolent trainee in her place. Girl, are you all right with your health? Lola stammered, sort of all right. Why did you ask? Snorts. How were you in the stall? And that's a sign of an upper respiratory problem. Maybe you have maxillary sinusitis. It's a disease that's dangerous to the patient and to others. Get it checked out just in case. Lisa wanted to show her support for the head nurse with a standing ovation, but she only smirked and looked at Adriana gratefully. The woman understood the look and smiled too. Lola did not utter another word. For over 3 hours, they drove around the city, and Adriana talked about every sick person they visited. Some she took their blood pressure, others she gave them an injection. Memorize, girls. Are you going to go to those addresses tomorrow? We're almost there. We only have one last address left. It's the highlight of our program. So please, nothing too much, including inappropriate emotions. They pulled up to a nice 2-story mansion. The driver signaled, and the gates began to slowly open. Noticing the surprised faces, the trainee, Adriana, explained, Our Andrew lives in this house. A very important person in the past, a successful businessman, and even a bit of a scientist. I don't know all of them, but I think he even has state awards for special contributions. The old man is very unhealthy, you could say conflicted. He has diabetes and a bunch of other ailments. The door was opened by an elderly woman. Noticing the head nurse, she nodded affably. Already she's nervous, saying you're late, and Adriana paid no attention to the woman's remark. Our old man has a small staff of servants. His son and his family used to live with him, but he literally chewed up his relatives, and they left. Now he's on his own. He pours out his discontent on anyone who comes to hand. Lisa expected to see an old man almost dying, but in the office the desk was piled with books and newspapers. Sitting there was an elderly man in a velvet house robe. At their appearance, he adjusted his expensive rimmed glasses. Ah, you're the one. You're late today. I already checked the sugar myself. Adriana put the emergency suitcase on the nightstand. You're a real unicum, Andrew. There's traffic everywhere. We've joined in a little bit. We're gonna take you now. Okay, I'll forgive you for the first time, but I hope it doesn't happen again. The man looked at the trainees incredulously. Who are these young ladies? Yum Cadaris. It's good to have someone to pass on experience to. I also try to make the most of it. My time is allotted to me. The man looked at his desk. I wanted to write memoirs at first, but then I thought that someone would start digging into my biography and changed my mind. I decided to gather all my experience in agriculture into a single whole. Yeah, I'm a loner. Don't be surprised. I've been involved in some of these things. The old man tried to flirt with the head nurse, but he did it awkwardly, unexpectedly. He rolled his eyes and started pushing himself to the floor. Lola squealed in fear, and Lisa managed to pick up the splintered neck of the body because she was closest to the old man. Adriana threw towards Lola an unkind look. Girl, you better get out. We don't need panickers here. Lisa was not distracted by her surroundings. She carefully laid the man on the carpet and turned his head on its side, then took hold of his wrist. No pulse visible and a faint filling. Adriana squatted down next to the intern. Sometimes our Andrew has attacks like this, but no matter how much we persuade him, he won't go to the hospital. The head nurse filled a syringe with medicine and gave the patient an injection. The old man breathed more evenly and slowly opened his eyes. I don't even want to hear about hospitalization. I'll die at home. It's a little early. You're talking about dying. You've still got the kind of energy that would make any young person jealous. The women picked up the old man and led him to the couch. Taking the opportunity, the man reminded Adriana of his long-standing request. Zinchenko, you never sent me a good nurse. Or have you completely forgotten about my request? Andrew, how can you say that when I sent you 5 people? They're inexperienced. One of them can't do anything, and the other one forgets to wash her hands. And I have a weak body. I could get an infection. And then what? The old man became agitated, and his breathing increased again. Lisa sat down next to him. You need to rest now, or you'll pass out again. Can I get you some water? Yeah, if it's not too much trouble, there's water in the carafe of cookies. I don't drink poison from the tap. They've polluted the environment. Now you can easily get poisoned by plain water. Lisa brought water. The old man drank small sips and kept looking at the girl. Quench your thirst. He handed the glass back to her and turned to Adriana. She's a nice girl, and she has a pleasant appearance. That's the kind of nurse I'd like to have around. The main nurse is confused. Andrew, Lisa, we've only got her first day of internship. She doesn't have her diploma yet. What does a diploma have to do with anything? That girl has a positive energy about her. One visit from her is soothing. Lisa made eye contact with the head nurse. What's wrong with that offer? Adriana threw such matters out of the window. Lisa will do her allotted hours at the clinic, and then she will do her internship at the hospital. Okay, we're late for our appointment. The old man said goodbye to them and promised I'd try to solve the problem myself. Lola was waiting for them in the car. She was silent all the way back to the clinic. Only at the end of the way, when they drove onto the overpass, she hissed with the same anger. You're doing a great job, turning your whole hide inside out. Lisa replied in the same tone. Are you in pain? You should show what you can do. I muttered in confusion. When that old man collapsed on the floor, I myself was frightened and almost collapsed. If you panic from such events, the only place for you to work is the registrar's office. Lola looked at Lisa with interest, and her eyes were alive and sparkling. Listen, that's not a bad idea. Sit by the window and smile at everyone. A crowd had already gathered around the office to which Adriana had directed them. But Lola sat on the couch for 3 hours with an indifferent look, and no one paid any attention to her because everyone wanted to get out of the line and go home as soon as possible. Almost every 5 minutes, the doctor would send the intern somewhere for tests or for the result of someone else's cardiogram. By evening, Lisa's feet were burning. She barely made it to the apartment and collapsed on the couch. Wendy leaned over and touched her lips to her daughter's forehead. Lisa, you don't look well, but you don't seem to have a fever. The girl smiled. Mommy, there's nothing wrong with me. It's just that I ran so many kilometers in a day that even my legs are twitching. Wendy covered her daughter with a blanket and went to the kitchen. From there, she yelled. Grandpa called. Asked how you were doing. I said I was fine. Tired and all over my body. Lisa herself did not notice how she fell asleep. Images of the past day flashed before her eyes. But at the center of the mosaic was the old man she had given first aid to. The thought flashed through my mind, who this grandfather reminded me so much of. It was already dark outside the window when her mother gently woke her up and called her to dinner. She told her parents about all of today's adventures and forgot to describe the special patient. The next morning, Lisa barely crossed the threshold of the polyclinic. She was summoned to the office of the head of the clinic. Noticing that the trainee got worried, The head nurse patted her on the shoulder. "Don't worry, beautiful. You distinguished yourself yesterday, and it became known to the superiors. In short, go to the head. He will explain everything to you." The girl knocked on the door with a sinking heart. Nick greeted her like an old acquaintance. "Come in, Lisa, sit down. We will have a long conversation with you." The man began to state the essence of the case 100 by 100, nodding on the table with a pencil. "I have no right to order you around, and can only ask one favor." Lisa tensed and quietly mumbled, "I've done something wrong." The superintendent smiled. "What is it about this actress?" "On the contrary, Adriana spoke very highly of you, and one of our patients. You won him over in a heartbeat." "You mean the old guy we saw yesterday?" "Him. Very mean grandpa, loves to make complaints about everyone. He's made complaints about us too, but there's nothing we can do about it. Our vocation is to treat the sick, regardless of their peculiarities. Anyway, Andrew liked you very much, and he demanded that we send you to be his nurse." The girl was surprised. "But that's not possible. I have to work hours in the hospital, on the ambulance, and in other units." The superintendent put his pencil aside. "I think we can settle this matter if you agree to a special mission. You see, Lisa, our patient is not a simple man. He has a special merit, and he's manipulating it. It's useless to fight him. It's better to submit. But in my practice, I have to account for every day, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll sign everything and thank you separately, if that's okay." "Then I agree." Nick is happy. "Thank you, colleague. Then you will take up your duties as of today." Lisa headed for the door, still not fully understanding what had happened. But the superintendent stopped her and forgot to tell you the most important thing. There are some costs to being a caregiver, so you'll be able to recover some of them. Mostly moral. Lisa went to a familiar address. She was greeted by the same silent housekeeper. The woman didn't even say hello, just nodded toward the stairs. "He's waiting." Andrew she found in the men's bedroom and lay in bed, covering her eyes and sighing heavily. At the girl's appearance, the sighs increased. Lisa came closer. "Hello, I was asked to look after you." The old man's voice was cheerful. "Asked by whom?" "It was me who asked, because you have a professional streak in you. I've had a lot of lame asses sent to me before. I'm not feeling well today. I should take your blood pressure and check your sugar. Then a neck massage would be nice. I hope they taught you how to massage." The patient kept asking questions, and Lisa had no time to answer them. After the standard medical procedures, Andrew wanted to get some fresh air. "Lisa, there's a stroller down there. Would you be so kind as to bring my transportation up here? I don't have any energy today." They walked in the garden for over an hour. And the old man didn't just want to breathe the fresh air. He demanded to be taken to one corner of the territory and then to another. During the movement, he was happy to tell the girl about his scientific work. "I am an agronomist by basic education, but I did not work in my specialty. For many years, all sat in responsible positions. And then, when the whole world turned upside down and bosses joined the ranks of the unemployed, I decided to go into business. You could even say that I was one of the leaders of this movement. I won't hide it. Luck didn't smile on me right away. Twice I ruined everything to nothing. Only later, when it turned out that the light was forever extinguished in my window, I remembered about my diploma Lizhinka in this garden, all the results of my work. Of course, I was not alone in creating new varieties of vegetables, flowers, and fruit crops. I was helped by like-minded people." During the walk, Lisa learned a lot of interesting things, but the constant tension had a strong effect on the girl's health, and by the end of the day, she could hardly move her legs. On reaching home, the girl collapsed on the sofa again. Wendy was worried. "Daughter, what kind of patient did you get?" "Probably an energy vampire." "Leave him. He'll take all your strength." But the girl didn't listen to her mother's advice. The first week was difficult, but she survived the ordeal and even got used to the quirks a little. Andrew. The old man then pretended to be terminally ill and refused to walk on his own, then jogged in the park. At the end of the week, the patient paid off the young nurse. When Lisa counted the money in the envelope, she thought, "For this kind of reward, I'm willing to put up with a couple more months." But the older man had a very different calculation. One day he said to Lisa, "Lisa, you suit me in every way. I would very much like to have you in my house all the time." The girl wanted to refuse such a tempting offer, but the old man beat her to it. "Don't be so quick to say no. I'm not just offering you this alliance for no reason. And for a certain remuneration, I've managed to insert a nurse. Andrew, I'm not really interested in money. And then I have a family and a boyfriend I'm going to marry." Tears glistened in the old man's eyes. Family. Such a small word and so succinct. I had a family a long time ago too, but I was too young. And for me there were very different reference points. "Leszczynka, if you don't mind, go to my office and bring a notebook with memoirs written on it. At one time I even counted myself in the ranks of geniuses, but then I realized that I am just like everyone else, no more than an ordinary unhappy old man." This lengthy monologue of the ward left a disturbing feeling in the girl's soul. It seemed to her that she had already heard such arguments, but there was no time to strain her memory. And Lisa went to run errands. Andrew's office was not gloomy. That's because the heavy curtains were pulled tightly as the girl walked past the shelves of books. She accidentally touched this light construction, and a photograph in an antique frame fell on the floor. In the semi-darkness, it was impossible to make out the image, and she placed the picture at random on one of the hangings. Not without difficulty, Lisa found a large leather-bound notebook on the table labeled Memoirs. She thought that Andrew was about to read out excerpts from this work to her, but the old man went deeper into reading, and she was sent home. "Lisa, you may be dismissed. I shall expect you tomorrow morning as usual." The girl had no sooner reached home than she remembered where she had seen exactly the same picture. There was no complete certainty yet. After all, the old man's study was dark. It only seemed to her that there was a resemblance. She thought she'd find out tomorrow. "I think I should carefully sneak into the study and reread the memoirs of my special patient." At the threshold of the apartment, she bumped into her mother. "Wendy was surprised to see you early today. Your grandfather is fine. By the way, your own grandfather called and expressed his displeasure. I support him. Instead of looking after other people's relatives, you should look after your own." Her mother's emotional remarks again caused concern. Somewhere in a remote corner of her brain there was a thought that the girl could not grasp. For days, Lisa had been trying to catch a good moment to get into Andrew's office, but it was as if the old man sensed it and gave her different errands, which took a lot of time. Only on Saturday, he felt weak again and went to bed. The nurse settled down next to him. We took his blood pressure every hour. When she noticed that he was dozing off, the girl tiptoed out of the bedroom and into the study. She pulled back the curtains as she approached the shelving unit. Immediately, she was stunned. It was the exact same picture as her grandfather's. Oh my God! How did I not realize Andrew was my grandfather's brother? Lisa rushed to the table, where a thick notebook with a detailed biography of the old man was still lying in a prominent place. But at that moment there were footsteps behind them, and a familiar voice said with condemnation how unkind it was to rummage through other people's things. "And I thought so highly of you." The owner of the house stood leaning on his cane and stared at the nurse. "I guess you and I will have to part. That's a pity." The man turned, but Lisa with despair. Andrew exclaimed, "Wait, I'll explain everything to you now." The old man froze in place. "What did you call me, Andrew?" "How do you know?" "My real name." He turned again and slowly approached the girl. "Bug. I didn't realize. Have you had a chance to study my memoirs?" No, I haven't even drawn them to your notebook. I only looked at that picture over there because the old man's face turned stony with tension. He was worried, and Lisa was afraid he might have another attack. He tapped his cane demandingly. "Why didn't you say something?" "You're talking. I'm giving you one last chance to justify your ugly deed. Lisa herself approached the old man and, looking him straight in the eye, said slowly, "Andrew, I am your brother Trevor's granddaughter. You haven't forgotten that you have a brother." The nurse had expected anything but such a reaction. The old man was outraged. "He's the one who sent you to me on purpose. I don't want to hear anything about him. He ruined my life, took my fiancée from me. Thanks to my brother, I'm a miserable existence now, and no one cares about me." This outburst of emotion drained the old man of his last strength. He collapsed in his chair and sobbed. Lisa did not know what to do. She was afraid to approach the man, lest she make him even more angry. But Andrew himself commanded, "What are you standing there for? Your eyes are bulging. See, I'm not well in Capri. Take some drops of sedative and get some water to drink." The girl rushed to carry out the order, while one thought was pounding in her head. What should I do next? The old man took the medicine and closed his eyes. Lisa stood next to him, afraid to move. "Why are you standing there like a dead man? Do you think I believe in your fairy tales? Admit it. You're a con artist. You've been trying to gain my trust on purpose so you could inherit my estate. I know the type, but I'm not fooled." That kind of accusation pissed the girl off. "What the hell do I need your mansion for? I'm already regretting that I met you. My grandfather and his tricks are not enough for me. Now you've fallen on my head. I've had enough. Find yourself another nurse." Lisa was relieved to have said all her grievances to the old man's face. She rushed out of the office, but the owner's voice came from behind her. "Lisa, wait. Why are you so quick to take offense? I didn't say anything bad to you. Stop it." The old man caught up with her at the stairs. The most surprising thing was that he moved briskly without using his cane. "I didn't even realize you had a temper. It's our breed." "Ak, you're hot." "So you say it, Trevor. The girl is barely alive. He told me everything. And why you quarreled, and why you cannot forgive each other. He told me about Nancy, too." The old man waved his hands vigorously. Then everything passed, flew away, and was forgotten. Just lyrics. "You'd better tell me where he's holed up." "He lives in a village outside the city. Miranda, my grandmother died long ago, and my grandfather is only one, and as mean as you. Now, I believe that character is passed on by genes. Let's save the high theories for later. I'm pretty good at genetics myself. That's not what concerns me." The man paused and asked confusedly, "Do you think we should not meet? That's for you to decide." "All right, I'll think about it. You call right away today." Lisa is very tired. After all the upheavals of this unusual day, it was even difficult for her to move her tongue. She mumbled something indistinctly and hurried to leave the house. But the old man from above shouted, "Lisa, you're not going to leave me after everything that's transpired. You'll come back tomorrow. I'll give you a raise next week." The girl stumbled to the bus stop. She mentally berated herself. "Why did I get involved in this story? Now my grandfathers will drink all the juice out of me. There was one, and now there are two." Her parents had already had dinner. Wendy put a plate of vermicelli and a cutlet in front of her, and Lisa ate, picking at it with her fork, and her mother watched her. "What's wrong again? You can't take everything to heart. It'll burn so fast. If that mean old man's bothering you again, you should dump him, Mom. It's not just a patient, it's Grandpa's missing sibling." Wendy opened her mouth in surprise. "Andrew, that's the one. Can you believe it? Living practically next door to each other and not seeing each other for half a century. I thought stories like that only happened in movies and novels." "Daughter, what are we gonna do? Now I'm thinking about it myself. We have to tell grandfather first, and then we'll decide. We'll consult with your father. He has a clearer mind than you and me." After a family meeting, the three of them decided that it would be better to organize the meeting with the consent of both parties. Lisa insisted on it because she was afraid that two old people might not be able to bear the shock of the meeting. But she could not foresee what happened afterwards. On the agreed day, James went to the village in the morning to pick up his father-in-law. It turned out that Trevor was not ready yet. The son-in-law began to wait patiently when he would bring himself in order. But the old man began to interrogate him. "James, why didn't Lisa show up herself?" "She's at work." "I thought you said Andrew had a nurse on the books." "Yeah. Well, that's her job. I mean, it's a practicum." So the granddaughter I've devoted so much to is grooming this scumbag. James realized that the brothers' reunion was about to be derailed, so he decided to yell at his grandfather. "Trevor, you asked to go to your brother's house, and now you're going to leave. I think it's time we put aside our past feuds and grudges. It's been half a century." This reprimand had an effect on the old man, and he puffed unhappily and went out into the living room. "James, if I look like this suit, my brother's an oligarch. He'll laugh at a simple tractor driver." Anticipating a new round of discontent, the man cried out, "Oh my God, this song is good. Start again." Finally, the car pulled away from the driveway, and Trevor froze in the back seat. In an hour or so, James and his relative aboard made it to the other end of town, where Lisa and her ward were already waiting impatiently for them. Everyone at the meeting was anxious, and it was noticeable. Trevor got out of the car and looked around first. "Yeah," the brothers waving his chorus. "It's not like we just gave them all 30 squares in an apartment." With Lisa's help, the older brother also took a closer look at the guest and went out on the front porch, even giving up a bone for the occasion. "Lisa, put that away. I don't want Trevor to think I'm helpless." The girl silently accepted the aid and helped her ward down the steps. Andrew did not hold back from making a visual comment. "Actually, a lot of honor for him. But okay, I only tolerate myself. I don't know why I'm doing all this." James, or from behind, watched as the old men walked towards each other. With each step, the distance between them was shrinking, and it seemed like they were about to embrace. And that would be the end of the era of brotherly enmity. But the elderly men stopped, not daring to take the last step. The younger brother coldly said, "I didn't expect to see you alive. Do mole that you died a long time ago." But Andrew didn't put words in his pocket either. "Likewise, brother, didn't expect to see you alive either. But I'm glad. I must admit I'm not very glad. I've long since gotten used to not having anyone." Lisa realized that everything was about to fall apart with her and her father. Right in front of her eyes, she gathered all of her grandfather's talent. "Please don't fight right now. It's such an unusual day. It's been so long since you've seen each other, hasn't it?" Trevor didn't let his granddaughter finish. "Lisa, who are you in front of now? You've traded me for that rascal. Don't you realize he's taking revenge on me after half a century?" "I'm right, Andrew." Lisa's patient didn't understand what the guest was accusing him of. "Trevor, what are you talking about, brother? Are you planning to win my only granddaughter to your side with your wealth to avenge Martha?" "Trevor, you're out of your mind. You must have been stung by a poisonous bee this morning. I waited for you like a man, like a brother, and you're on my doorstep hurling insults at me. Go away. I don't want to see you again. I hate the look on your face, and you pretend to be sick, and you jump up and down the stairs like a stallion." Trevor turned and waved to his son-in-law. "James, let's all go home." The ceremony was over. Lisa rushed after her grandfather. "Grandpa, what are you doing? You're the one who asked for this meeting." The aggrieved old man turned around. "And you're Lisa. You don't have to come to me anymore. You have a rich grandfather now. You even take care of him. And you've forgotten your way back to me." Trevor got into the car and slammed the car door loudly. His older brother stood in the same spot and desperately shouted, "Well, roll on. We haven't seen each other in 50 years, and we won't see each other again. Lisa, help me into the house. I don't feel well." The girl just burst into tears. "You know I don't work for you anymore. The only thing I can do for you right now is call an ambulance." Lisa rushed past the old man into the house and grabbed her purse. She was crying. "I wanted you two to make up so badly. How about you? Andrew stood there and blinked his eyes in surprise. No one has ever called me Gusak in my life. The car with the guests had long ago disappeared from view, and in the distance the figure of a girl who in just a few weeks could change the life of a lonely old man. Andrew still hoped that she would return, but the nurse did not appear. Only late in the evening he made his way into the house, and at the very entrance noticed his cane left by Lisa. The old man picked up the innocent object and brought it down forcefully on his knee. There was a crack that sounded very loud in the evening silence. The old man shouted, turning his eyes toward him, "I've ruined everything, you old jackass. I myself have dreamed of making peace with my brother for so many years." Wendy, by the expression on her husband's daughter's face, realized that the meeting had failed. "I knew it was a stupid idea from the start. My mother, when she was alive, told me in every detail about the conflict that had arisen because of her. I know my father too well to believe in a fairy tale reconciliation." Lisa drank her tea in silence, but after her mother's words, she said confidently, "Mom, I've reconciled them anyway. I don't know how to do it yet, but I'll think of something." Wendy sighed. "Oh, I don't know, daughter. For so many years, they've been basically complete strangers. And on the other hand, by the old age, everyone has a desire to be closer to their native roots, and they have such a thing for each other. I sometimes think, the bad character of my father and now Andrew, it's in their genes, or maybe they're just afraid to be good." That's when James stepped in. "You women love to find an explanation for everything. I mean, think about how they were when they were young. And all we know is what your father told Wendy. And no one listened to Andrew's side of the story. It's entirely possible that it's a different one. And it's only by putting one on top of the other that we can finally figure out who's right and who's wrong." Wendy looked at her husband thoughtfully. "James, do you think after all these years it matters anymore?" Did he wave his hand? "Honestly, I'm not sure of anything myself. But I understand our daughter has your family's stubborn streak, and she won't give up. So we have to start somewhere." Lisa put the mug down. "Mom, Dad's right, and you're right when you say that if you don't understand something, you should go to Dad." James looked at his wife gratefully and smiled. "Daughter, can you count on me? If I can do anything, I will help you." Lisa decided to give Adrian and Grandpa a few days to pine away. First on her list was Andrew. She figured she'd have time to figure out what to say to him, how to get him to open up. Adriana met her at the doorstep. "Lisa, what's wrong?" "What do you mean?" "Well, you're supposed to be at Andrew's." Lisa smiled. "What did you call and complain already?" "No, but I'm just surprised to see you here." "Adriana, I won't go to him anymore." "You don't have to talk me into it." But Lisa, the girl, almost interrupted her. "I'm sure he won't ask for a nurse again. If anything, Grandpa is quite still alive, and believe me, he runs faster than I do." Adriana exclaimed, "What the hell happened? Oh my God, I'm in so much trouble." Lisa didn't have time to answer. "How did Mom hear what happened again?" "Can you hear you in the next ward? I won't believe that Lisa's smart, kind girl upset you so much." Lisa turned around abruptly and froze. Rob was approaching them with a smile. Adriana quickly turned around and then threw herself at her son. "How many times have I asked you to call me by my middle name at work?" Rob smiled even wider. "Excuse me, Adriana, may I ask what I've upset you about, Lisa?" The woman looked at Lisa in surprise. "Do you two know each other? Aren't you the beautiful Lisa I've heard so much about?" Lisa blushed instantly and shrugged her shoulders. "Adriana, the young people followed me. They entered some kind of office, and the nurse closed the door behind them. Rob, maybe Lisa will listen to you and go back to Andrew." "Who's Andrew?" "It's a long explanation. One very elderly and very cranky patient." Rob turned to Lisa. "Lisa, why are you hurting patients?" Lisa laughed involuntarily. So funny was Rob's tone. She drew in more air. "I can't go back to him, because we had a fight, not as caregiver and patient, but as granddaughter and grandfather. The thing is, Andrew, turns out my grandfather is really my great-uncle. Adriana shook his head. I don't understand. What granddaughter? Oh, it's such a long story. My grandfather and Andrew. They fought when they were young. Now they're both old people and they both miss each other. But they are so stubborn that even at the meeting we arranged for them, they manage to immediately fight, call each other names, and then part as enemies again. I think they should make up. They don't have much time in this world. And they, their bad temper is just a consequence of fighting. You should see them together like two sheep with their horns locked together and no place else to go. Rob chuckled. That's quite a story. How long have they been estranged? For over 50 years. Adriana waved her hand. Doesn't that remind you of anything? I'm sure there's a woman involved in their case, just like ours involves a man. Anyway, that's Lisa. I'm going to draw up a new schedule now. Let's hope your ward doesn't alert the whole city. And if he does, we'll be on the defensive. Lisa changed her clothes and went out. She had already seen Lola sitting at the reception desk with an important look and not reacting to the patients asking her anything. She was concentrating on the scenery outside the window. Lisa did not interfere with the work process because she herself had things to do. But they had to cross paths again. And in the most unexpected way, they ran into each other in the doorway when they went out after work. But the most interesting thing was not that. Max and Rob were waiting outside. Lola walked over to Max and glanced at Rob, but he just turned away and smiled at Lisa. What are you up to? Let's go. He put his arm around her shoulders and dragged her away from the hospital porch. Lisa walked at first, then indignantly threw off his arm. If you're showing off, passed from Max. There was so much surprise in Rob's gaze that Lisa immediately felt ashamed. I'm sorry, Rob. What are you? I'm totally, he exhaled. Okay, never mind. I have an idea to reconcile your grandfathers. If you have time, let's go to the park. I'll tell you. Lisa looked at the time. Mom's gonna be worried. Lisa really didn't want to upset her or Dad right now. Recent events had somehow brought them very close together. She looked at Rob. Look, why don't we go over there and we can talk? Rob looked at her in surprise. And how would you introduce me? Lisa smiled. She wasn't at all sure she was doing the right thing. She didn't know how her mom would take it. But there was no other way. I'll introduce you as a friend to a coworker. James paced from corner to corner. I don't know. I think it's a completely crazy idea. And if it doesn't work out, do you realize that this will be the end of it? Lisa nodded that in our case, the end would be a return to the way things were before. That is, they just won't remember each other at all. James raised his glasses to his forehead, looking at his daughter. So I take it you're already on board. Dad hasn't yet. But Rob makes a good point. Such a strong quarrel by traditional methods. Not calm down. You need some kind of emotional outburst. Wendy poured tea. Rob. But darling, they're very old. What if the heart can't take it? Mom, we need to get someone to tell them I've been hit by a car. Someone who can watch me, give me a shot. But I think grandpas are a lot stronger than they realize. James sighed. Well, let's give it a try, shall we? Rob, you tell me what you decide about the performance chamber. Rob waved his head contentedly. Yeah, Mom will help. Wendy said we better not be enemies with the grandfathers. They'll find out it's not true. They won't forgive us. Lisa replied, we won't say we lied. It's just a strong body. That's why she got better. Or were you sent home for treatment? Rob raised his hand. By the way, the second option is a win-win. Elderly people will have a chance to scold medicine and take care of Lisa together. We just need to get it all mapped out, calculated. I set up some kind of accident for Lisa. It's a deal. In 3 days, Lisa had to visit one and the other grandfather before, so to speak, to set up bridges. Trevor met his granddaughter with a guilty look. Forgive us, old fools. But I guess we'll live out our lives one by one. But don't take offense. Come back often. Lisa hugged her grandfather, saying she'd never leave him. Trevor even wept. She was leaving. It's a bit of a nerve-wracking feeling. It doesn't make sense. It could be that Mom's right, and they're doing this for nothing. They're old people, after all. But after a little thought, she decided that she would not abandon the plan. They were all sure the grandfathers would make up. At her hospital bed, which Lisa finds herself in after a car accident that won't really happen. The next day, she has to visit Andrew. Lisa was working and thinking about what Lisa will be talking to him about. She was surprised to see Max walking towards her. "Max, Lisa, I want to invite you to a movie tonight." The girl looked at him in surprise. "But what about Lola? What about Lola? She's dumb as a cork." "I'm sorry, Max, but I can't." Lisa turned away, considering the question exhausted. And then she met the angry stare of Alla, who was standing outside the door. And of course, she heard everything. Max kept up. "Listen, you can't do it today. Let's do it tomorrow." Lisa turned to him. Max was smiling. "Max, answer me one question. Who are you trying to hurt right now, Lola or Rob?" Max's kind, naive eyes narrowed a moment ago. "Aren't you a little too smart for a regular nurse? A trainee. And I'll answer that I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone." Max turned around and headed for the exit, and Lisa looked where Lola had just stood. She hoped that the girl had heard everything, but she was not there. Rob was sitting by Lisa's parents. "I don't understand what's taking so long. It'll be dark soon. How is she going to get home?" James looked at Rob and smiled. He really liked the guy. Wendy Travers seemed to like him, too. "Maybe I should call her after all." "Wendy's got the phone. I'll call her. I'm a mom, after all. It won't raise any suspicions." Wendy dialed the number. She listened for a long time. "I don't get it." No answer. Rob said maybe the phone's in her purse, and she's somewhere in the rooms. "You know what? I'm gonna go to her place. She's probably forgotten it's time to put the plan in motion." James was getting worried. "You're probably right. Call her right away." "I will." Rob drove up to Andrew's house. It was strangely quiet, and even the gate was closed. He parked, went to the gate, stood for a while, dialed Lisa, but the receiver was now switched off. Rob resolutely pressed the call button. The gate opened, and an elderly woman stood behind it. "Hello. Hello. Can I speak to Lisa?" "But Lisa hasn't come to see us for days." Rob felt a chill run down her spine. "That can't be. She was on her way to your house around 5 o'clock today." The woman shrugged. "If you don't believe me, ask Andrew." She headed toward the house, and Rob followed her. He really hoped the lady hadn't seen Lisa arrive, although that was very unlikely. Andrew was sitting at the table. "Who else is there?" He looked unhappily at the housekeeper, then at Rob. The young man spoke up. "The thing is, Lisa was supposed to go to your place after work today. But I understand she didn't get to you. Her phone is off. What the hell is going on?" The old man's eyebrows went up at me. "But he's up at work, Rob tapped himself on the forehead. "No, I'm going to call my mom now." He quickly pulled out his phone, talked over something, and turned confusedly to Andrew. "Mom says she left on time and was in a big hurry. She said the old man went to Grandpa's house because she wasn't like those girls who just disappear without warning. That's for sure. Well, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to her parents." Andrew stood up. "And I didn't argue with you." Rob wasn't going to argue, of course, though he wanted to say a few words to the old man. They're the reason something's going on with his brother. Wendy looked at Rob in surprise, then at Andrew. She looked out on the landing. "Where's Lisa?" Rob looked at her in silence and didn't know how to tell her. "Wendy, don't worry. I'm sure there's an explanation for everything. For example, Lisa's phone just died, and she had to go somewhere urgently." The woman slowly sat down on the couch. "Lisa is very careful about everything. She can't have a dead phone. If it goes out somewhere, she always warns you. I take it she wasn't at your place today." Wendy looked at Andrew. "No, she wasn't. I was going to go over there myself to apologize. The girl worked so hard, and we're two old fools. Wendy wrapped her arms around her head. She's gone. It's been over 5 hours. We have to go to the police. It's the first time James has raised his voice. At the police, no one will take a statement right away. We have to wait until 3 days have passed. Wendy exclaimed. James, 3 days? What are you saying? The man stood up resolutely. So Rob and I are going to the hospital now. Ask there if Lisa said anything or if anyone saw her come out. Andrew got up, and I had a fit. Will you, kind uncle, wait here? I don't want anything to happen to you. You're making a mess of things. Grown men. Could it be because of you, Lisa? Andrew sat down silently. Wendy's right. But peace, my brothers. Let me not give it to you. It was not enough to spoil it. At that moment the phone rang. Wendy wiped her tears and grabbed the phone. Oh my God. Speak of the devil. It's Dad. What are you doing up? There's so much time. Wendy, don't yell at your father. You don't want to talk to an old, useless man. Get my granddaughter. I'll talk to her. Wendy wanted to say something, but she couldn't. Wendy cried. Wendy, what's wrong? Talk fast. I wonder why I can't sleep. Wendy. Andrew took the phone from Wendy Trevor's hands. Hey, Trevor, what are you doing there? You're trying to take over my family. Shut up, Trevor, and listen. Lisa's gone. The phone went silent. Andrew impatiently said, Are you deaf or what? As disappeared, Trevor's voice sounded muffled. So gone. While I was thinking how to make us up. While I was running to you. And she's gone. My son-in-law, where? Where and who knows where? They're looking for him. This guy Rob is with him. He's looking for him too. I'll be there soon. What are you coming in? You old fool. Or did you buy a car? That's not your concern. And don't forget you're older. That makes you even more of a fool. The phone buzzed briefly. Wendy looked at Andrew. Well, he'll be here in a minute, she said. Where's he coming? What's the old man driving? Wendy shrugged. Trevor, meanwhile, was dialing the number of the cab. He found it in an ad in the paper. After talking to the girl and explaining everything about where he lived, he began to pack a bag. It is necessary to put all the necessary thermos, flashlight, clothes, find warmer. He put everything that he thought would be useful. Adriana, Rob and James, all of them realized that they would not learn anything new. They already wanted to go coming the route Lisa was supposed to take. As one ambulance driver remembered, I don't know if this information will be helpful to you. A guy came in for the day. Second intern with him all the time. Anyway, he was kind of hitting on Lisa, and the second intern heard her hiding behind the door over there. She didn't see me. I was just going into the gallery to get some boiling water for tea. Rob immediately grabbed the phone. He called, then called again until he got an answer. Max, you bastard, where are you? Did you even know how? Why the hell are you calling me? You're yelling at me at a time like this. Rob tried not to yell, but he wasn't very good at it. I'm not just gonna yell. I'm gonna interrupt you. Do you understand me? Where's Lisa? Or are you gonna answer me right away? Or I'm gonna find you right now. Max laughed. Rob, have you been drinking in there? How should I know? Where's your Lisa? Max, I'm not in the mood for jokes. I don't understand. Are you serious? Did something happen? Rob realized that his brother, no matter how bad he was, would never dare to do anything bad for which he would have to be held responsible. So I asked, Max, when was the last time you saw her? This afternoon. I tried to ask her out. I confess you have. I thought about taking her off your hands. But she wouldn't even listen. I'm so sick of it. She's the dumbest person I've ever seen. So I tried to ask Lisa out. I never saw her again. I left right away. Hello, is she with you? Can I talk to her? I'm afraid I can't. She called about 4 o'clock. I told her it was over between us. She was screaming. Rob, where are you? Do you need any help? We can handle it. He disconnected, looked at James Isaac. We need to look for Lola, but we need to look the right way. We'll split up. I don't even know. Maybe we'll go through first. Okay, let's. They left the hospital and stopped on the street. There were two grandfathers waiting for them. Behind them stood Wendy. She looked questioningly at James, but he shook his head negatively. The woman immediately turned away to wipe away her tears. "What are you doing here?" Trevor glanced glumly at his son-in-law. "Were you inspecting the road?" "No, we didn't have time." "We'll go now." "We had to go first." The grandfathers took the flashlights in their hands. Trevor handed his rucksack to Rob, and they moved away from the hospital. Or from behind the door banged tiredly on the door and sank tiredly to the floor. He was wet, floppy, cold. But the girl didn't care. She even suspected there were rats, but it wasn't scary anymore. It was only the first hour or two when she hurried to Andrew. Lola got in her way. "Lisa, we need to talk." "Lola, let's do it next time. What's wrong with you?" "Let's go behind the bushes. There's a bench behind the bushes, not just to talk." "We need to talk." Lisa sighed. It was the first time she had seen Lola talking normally. "If you're about Max, no, or because the conversation has nothing to do with him." "Well, okay. Just for a little while. I'm in a big hurry." Sure enough, they wrapped up behind the bushes. Lisa saw no bench, only a dilapidated house. Apparently, it had already been vacated for demolition, and it looked terrifying. "Where's the bench?" "A little further ahead." Lola followed behind on the narrow path. As soon as they appeared at the entrance to the cellar, Lola pushed her hard in the back, and Lisa literally rolled down. The girl shoved her until Lisa regained her senses into the basement room and closed the door. Lisa, when she heard Lola putting the lock on, screamed, "Lola, what are you doing? You're out of your mind. You're the one who's crazy. What the hell are you doing? Always getting in my way. Now sit there until you die. Lola, you're going to jail. Let me out. No one will ever find you." "Got it." Lisa started going through her pockets, but the bag and the phone must have stayed in front of the door. "Hello? Hello, open up. They'll find me anyway." Lisa heard some rustling. Then she listened again and realized that Lola was piling some branches or other debris in the entrance. The girl started pounding on the door in desperation. "Lola, I beg you," but there was silence outside. Lisa pounded on the door with her hands, then her feet. She screamed when her voice was gone. She pounded on the door again with her feet, realizing with horror that no one was walking past the structure. That's where the police came in. She chased some alkies to homeless people. If they heard her, it was unclear whether it would be better. It was pitch black in the basement. There was a tiny crack in one side of the door, and it glowed slightly. When the glow disappeared, Lisa realized that it was dark outside. She sat on the floor and occasionally knocked on the door with her removed shoe. "What's in here?" "Nothing. A wasteland." "What wasteland with his house in sight?" Trevor pointed the beam at the house. "It's not a house. No one lives there anymore." James shuddered. "No, she can't be there." Wendy cried. Trevor turned to her. "But what's the baby saying? And what's the baby saying?" Andrew supported his brother for the first time. "There's no need to cry. Not why. As long as nothing has happened, nothing will happen." Rob went forward, and the old men lit the way. Rob thought that's what the old guard was all about, and their flashlights and backpacks were obviously useful. They walked around the house. Rob said nothing, no sign of anything, and even the basement was filled with trash. Andrew approached the opening to the basement. He looked there for a long time, then called Trevor over. They talked about something and Trevor ordered them to dismantle. James answered, "I can take it apart, of course. But you can see that it's empty, and we will only waste time empty. You say, look how the grass is taken. So they've been carrying garbage here recently, and the grass hasn't grown yet. It takes 24 hours for the grass to come up, you know." Rob was already spreading out the trash. James joined him. Trevor raised his hand when half of it had been cleared, but silently everyone stopped. Faint thumps were heard from below. "Lisa," Rob started up with redoubled energy. Wendy looked down in horror. "The lock here is a healthy lock." Trevor told Andrew about the light. He pulled a knife out of his backpack, did some more picking, and the lock opened. Rob tore the door open, and Lisa fell at their feet, who, as soon as she heard the sounds, stood pressed against the door and whispered help. The voice was gone. It had been missing for hours. Wendy rushed downstairs. Lisa, you're all right." They didn't get home until the morning. "Daddy, Uncle Andrew, I'll style your room for you." Trevor looked at his daughter, then at Andrew. "My brother and I are going to go to his place, if that's okay with him. He seems to have more room. We'll talk about everything." Andrew nodded his head in agreement. "Yes." James stood up. "I'll take you." Wendy saw the men off and went to pack a bag. Lisa had been left at the hospital. "We had to take things, and then to the police." Lisa is squinting in the sun. She spent 24 hours in the hospital. They took some tests, gave her pills, and Lisa slept for 24 hours. Now her mom called, said they were waiting for her downstairs. The doctor gave her the certificate, told her to be careful. She went down the stairs and thought that, as it turned out, it was so great to live that it was impossible to tell. And if she could still get to try on her grandfather's. Lisa knew that Lola had been taken to the police and that sort of even Max had gone there. Probably realized it was all for him. But I didn't want to think about the ball. I didn't want to forgive or be angry. That's all. She was only a few steps away from the ball when Rob rushed up to meet her. Lisa blushed immediately. She remembered him stroking her cheek, her arm. When she'd been found, she hadn't cared then. Now she thought that everyone had seen it. She'd lost consciousness almost immediately. Like the doctor said, the shock of being found was worse than the shock of being hidden in the basement. "Lisa, how are you?" Did he put his arm around her? Or did you lock yourself away from her all right? "Thank you. You're welcome. It's the grandfathers. The grandfathers. Why does he talk about them? As if they were one and the same." Lisa followed his gaze and saw the grandfathers. They were standing off to the side, talking peacefully. Lisa even lost her eyes. No, they're really standing there, talking, even laughing. "Rob, did they make up?" "They totally made up. And it's all thanks to you." Lisa fell into the arms of Mom, then Dad, then Grandpa. She was smiling. She couldn't believe that these two old people were really talking, smiling, and no one wanted to kill anyone. Already at home at the set table. When Rob and Lisa talked about how they were going to set it up, as if the girl had been in an accident. Trevor looked at Andrew and stood up. Andrew stood up after him as well. "We apologize. We want to apologize to you, Lisa. If it wasn't for you, we'd be dead." Lisa hugged them and then signaled Rob to go out on the balcony. She looked so mysterious that Rob was immediately worried. Oh, this was not good. They went out on the balcony, looked down at the kids playing on the playground for a while. Then Lisa turned sharply to Rob. "You know, I've got a cool idea for reconciling Grandpa Andrew and his son." Rob realized that his fears were justified. Lisa's eyes were sparkling. She was ready to rush back into the fray. He grabbed her arm and literally dragged her into the room. "Just a moment, everyone. Our Lisa, who almost died yesterday, announces a new adventure. Andrew Saveleave's reconciliation with his son. I think something should be done about it." Andrew stood up, smiled. "I called the kids yesterday. They'll be here by this evening." Lisa clapped his hands together, but Rob raised his hand again. "It's not all about watching Lisa. I realized she needed constant supervision. That's why everyone froze." He turned to the girl, who was looking at him with huge eyes. "That's why I'm asking for Lisa's hand in marriage. As a husband, it will be much more convenient for me to keep her away from all sorts of detective stories." Wendy cried at once. The old men murmured approvingly. They liked Rob right away. James put his arm around his wife. "Come on. There's no need to cry. Rob will take good care of our daughter." Rob looked at Lisa carefully. "What do you think?" Lisa snuggled up to him. "What can I say? The two of us can do so much more." Rob grabbed her and surrounded her. Everyone present laughed at the girl's words.
Subscribe and click the bell.
Happy graduates came on the stage. They were given certificates. Girls were given flowers and boys were given small gifts. Dear graduates, Clara, smiling ingratiatingly, took under her arm a handsome 40-year-old man in a dark, expensive suit who entered the hall. Tonight would not be possible without our dear sponsor, Christian Wilson. Let's welcome him. Flowers and gifts for our graduates, provided by his firm. She was the first to applaud, led him to a place of honor among the guests, and sat down next to him. Pay attention to that girl over there, nodded the director of the orphanage to the stage. Pretty, relaxed, the pride of our orphanage, a pleasant conversationalist can do a lot. Take a closer look. Not bad, quietly replied Wilson, appraising, looking at the graduate. But it's not the same. I'm tired of pretty faces in their 18, already gone through fire and water. I want a clean girl, not spoiled. She should be rustic, knave, but smart. I asked for a modest, simple girl, preferably pretty. Isabella Davis is invited to the stage. The hostess has announced. Who's that? Squinting, the man asked, scrutinizing the girl, who, smiling embarrassedly, approached the host. How come I've never seen her before? Well, Clara hesitated. She's so unassuming you wouldn't even look at her if it weren't for graduation. She's pretty sure, but she's very modest. She's a headache. Believe me, she can't do anything. She's hardly interesting to you as a woman. Clara got nervous. Trouble is, I thought she wouldn't notice Isabella. I had dressed her in a low-colored outfit, but the devil had noticed. The headmistress was upset because of the pupil. She loved her maternally and did not want the fate that was prepared by the dear guest. I'll decide who I'm interested in and who I'm not. Wilson cut her off abruptly. Just such a type, the limit of my dreams. Did you hide her on purpose? He looked suspiciously at the director. Don't disappoint me. You know I don't tolerate games behind my back. I thought that little gray mouse couldn't be the centerpiece of your house. How can she be dignified at social gatherings? She'll embarrass you. Believe me, she'll bring you grief. Meanwhile, the festivities are over. Christian, Clara have secluded themselves in the principal's office. I'm taking Isabella away from you. In an expensive leather armchair, the man said. I liked her right away. Listen. Clara frantically searched for a reason to refuse. She's just a girl, knave, unintelligent, but what if I sent Lisa with you? She's a quick-witted, skillful girl. I think she's closer to you than Isabella. I'm afraid she'll disappoint you. Clara was not in vain nervous. Her guest was a lover of young girls who had just finished school. The woman realized that, despite the unruly, cocky character, Isabella will not be able to fight back. Don't be so shaky. Christian grinned. Your son is safe as long as you honor our arrangements. Yes, I'll do as you say. I'm glad we understand each other. The man smiled sweetly and threw some bills on the table. This is for you to ease your conscience. I didn't realize you were so sentimental. If you care so much about this Isabella, it means I didn't make the wrong choice. He left, and Clara sat down at the table, dropped her head on her hands, and fell silent. What a scoundrel! What a lecher! She muttered to herself. I am good. I could not defend the girl. My heart is not in place. I am so worried about Isabella. But what can I do? Two dear people are at stake, and yet my son's freedom is more precious. The way things are, I can't let my child go to prison. And Isabella, God forgive me, I'm a sinner. In the morning, Clara went to the dining room where the inmates were having breakfast. Isabella, come here, please. Yes, Clara. Trustingly, looking into the eyes of the director, the girl replied. The woman looked away, uncomfortable with the upcoming conversation, but Wilson cornered her. And what are those people in strict suits doing here? Who are they waiting for? Isabella asked, entering the principal's office. Isabella, the woman paused. There was a struggle going on inside her, but she knew that the mother would win and the principal would fulfill the wish of the man who sponsored all the big events at the orphanage. I'm very happy that you graduated from high school. You are the pride of this year's graduating class. I know you have big plans for your future, but you will have to put them on hold. Why? The girl looked at the principal, puzzled. Wilson is waiting for you at his house. Wilson? Our guest from yesterday? Clara nodded. She was visibly nervous. Why does he need me? I don't understand. What don't you understand? The headmaster suddenly shouted in a trembling voice. Didn't you hear anything about him from our girls' graduates? He liked you. I've heard something in passing. Isabella slowly began to realize what had been said. But I don't like him. I don't want to go out with him. One of the girls wanted to go to his house. I don't remember. Let them go in my place. I don't want to be his concubine. You can't refuse. Tiredly said Clara. He won't give up. If anything, he's made up his mind. I'm not going to go to him. You have no right to force me. The girl rushed to the door, swung it open. The exit was blocked by stout young men. They stared silently at Isabella, ready to twist her at any moment if necessary. She slammed the door shut and turned to the principal. How can you do this to us? I mean, he's old. Have you sold out for money? You don't understand anything. Clara, nervously biting her lips, wrapped her arms around herself as if trying to keep warm. He's a scary man and I'm on the hook for him. A few years ago, he saved my son, got him out of jail, my boy's freedom. That's the trump card Wilson is using, and I'm powerless. I can't fight back. He's blackmailing me. One day you'll be a mother, and you'll realize you'd sell yourself to the bald man for your child to be happy. So there's no chance of me getting out of here. Those are his guards at the door. I wanted to spare you from that fate, but he wanted someone just like you. He said he wanted a naive, modest girl, and God gave you beauty and intelligence to ruin. How many girls did he have in his collection? You're the fourth. And where did they go? Do you know what happened to them after they were in the hands of this Wilson? I don't know anything about their fate. Clara looked pityingly at Isabella. I haven't tried to find out. So you send 18-year-old girls to a grown man and just forget about their fate. How's that? Doesn't it make you feel bad? I'm sorry. Tears came to the woman's eyes. They agreed at once. No one resisted. She grasped Isabella's hand and spoke eagerly. If I could stop him, but my son's freedom is in his hands. You will understand me when you are a mother yourself. You'd better accept it. He won't back down. He's a scary man. He'll stop at nothing. Even if I tried to report him to the police, he'd get away with it. It's all been bought. Isabella stood for a moment, looking into the headmaster's eyes. In them, except fear and entreaty, she read nothing else, then pulled her hand out of the hands of Claire, abruptly opened the door and said loudly, Well, if there's no escaping fate, let's take it as it comes. Let's go, boys. Isabella was returning from school, not far from the house, noticed her grandmother, caught up with her mother, who leaned with her back against the fence, sat looking at the surrounding with meaningless eyes. The girl slowed her step and stopped. Well, stood up like a stumbling block. Vanessa shouted, "Help your mother to the bed. I can't do it alone. You see, she's drunk again." Lord, when will it all end? Make sense of my foolish daughter. When will you get drunk on this vodka? Isabella obediently came and took her mother under her arm, but she couldn't hold her and dropped her on the ground. "Oh, you bastard!" Grandmother hit her, dry fist in the shoulder. Quite sensitively, the girl wrinkled from the pain. "You can't hold your mother, hold her tight." The two of them dragged the mother to the bed. You didn't watch her again. The old woman scolded her granddaughter. "I told you not to let her out of the house." "I was at school. How could I watch her?" Justified the girl. "We left the house together in the morning. She said she went to work." "What kind of job?" "She was fired last week." "What am I going to do with them?" The old woman cried. "Both of them and their husbands drink like crazy, and you can't help them." "Did you go for bread?" "No, I didn't have time." "I'll be right back." Isabella ran out of the house, afraid she'd get another beating from her grandmother. "Isabella," a neighbor met her. "There's your father lying by the store. You should pick him up." The girl hurried to the store. Her father was lying on the side, sleeping soundly. "Daddy." Isabella shook him by the shoulder. "You won't wake him up." Some man said confidently, "And how can I bring him home?" The girl was confused. "Don't be sad, we'll help you." The man bent down, pulled her father by the arm and put him on the ground, then picked him up, threw him on his shoulder and dragged him. Isabella ran after him. Receive. Entering the house and breathing heavily, the stranger spoke. He carefully lowered his heavy burden onto the couch, straightened up, took a breath, and left. "Where did you find him?" Vanessa asked, making her father comfortable on the couch. "Outside the store, he was asleep. The man volunteered to help. I didn't even ask." The world is not without kind people. "Did you buy bread?" The old woman caught on. "No, I had to come back because of my father." "You wretch!" The grandmother swung and pulled on her granddaughter's back with the towel she held in her hands. Isabella quickly rushed into the store. "What are you going to kill Isabella for?" A neighbor showed up on the doorstep. "You're out of control." Granny grumbled. "No wonder. Parents who do not dry out for a day. The child is not needed at all." Somehow she's still studying well. Another girl in her place would have abandoned everything long ago. "Yes, it's a pity about the girl," the neighbor lamented. "You should caress her. The girl lacks love and affection. One day she won't be able to stand it and will do something. That's why we have to keep a tight grip on her, so that she grows up strictly, or else she'll go down a crooked path like her parents. Wash the floors." She told her granddaughter when she returned from the store. "You've trampled here. I have no strength left." "Okay, Grandma." The girl obediently took a bucket and a rag. "You're driving the girl crazy." The neighbor reproached the grandmother. "She doesn't hear a kind word from you. Is it her fault that both parents have gone crazy?" "None of your business." The old woman replied glumly. "I can't cope alone, and parents are of little use. You should take pity on her." The friend lamented. "But what is the use of that pity? Then she will thank me for teaching her everything." The mother should be an example, but not fate. Both of them should be deprived of parental rights. "I don't think so. It's better to live at home with them than in an orphanage." The neighbor shook her head disapprovingly and went away. "Grandma, can Cindy come to my birthday party?" Isabella asked one day. She was going to be 13 in 2 days. "Think about it. Where are you going to invite guests?" Grandma frowned. Parents won't let them stay. They just want an excuse to get drunk. Then you'll be embarrassed. We'll lock ourselves in my room. No one will hear us. Please, Grandma. All right, Vanessa muttered. Just don't tell your parents. Maybe you'll get away with it. I'll make you something tasty. The grandmother hoped in vain that the mother would not remember about her daughter. She came in the evening with a bottle of wine, set the table. She ordered her mother, shaking her hand, pouring vodka into a glass. Would you not spoil the party, Isabella? Asked the older woman. She has a guest. I have the right to drink to my daughter's health, and you are not my order. I gave birth to her. That's a good reason to have another drink. I drink with my own money. I'm not borrowing it from you. Can I have an appetizer? You'd better replace the electric stove. The wire's getting hot. It's not a bad thing. You're always dissatisfied with something. Angrily said the woman. You need, you buy, but I have no money. When I get a job, then everything will be. But until then, do not bother me. You and your husband will always have money for vodka. Vanessa grumbled, serving a simple appetizer. Isabella and her friend sat in the room for a while, watched cartoons, played, and went home. The girl was glad that her mother did not make a scandal like last year when Isabella invited her friends, and in no way expected that her mother would come home drunk from work and roughly disperse the whole company. The girl at that moment was ready to fall to the ground with shame. In the morning, she kissed her grandmother and ran off to school. Do not delay. I'm boiling borscht with your favorite garlic buns. The old woman shouted after her. Okay, Grandma. The day was going great. Isabella was in a hurry to get home. She was walking, facing the spring sunshine, and humming a cheerful song to herself. Wow! Approaching the house, suddenly noticed Isabella. An uneasiness stirred in her soul. Was there a fire? There were people in the street, cars, ambulances, firemen. Do you know who has a fire? She asked a woman who was trying to see what was going on up ahead. Isabella. The neighbor looked at her fearfully. Your house is on fire. How? The girl was dumbfounded and rushed through the crowd. Where? Someone called her and tried to hold her back. Don't go to the ashes, stop. Let me go, my mom's there. They grabbed her, held her down. She started to break free. Grandma, Daddy, let me go. Why are you standing there? We have to save her. She screamed, trying to break free from the tight embrace. I have to go to them. Isabella, they're dead. A man's strong arms shook her. You can't go in there, do you hear me? They're gone. Yes, they are. Why are you standing there? Why aren't you helping? They can't be dead. Don't you understand? They're out there. I'll find them. Let me go, please. The girl suddenly weakened, slipped out of my arms, sat down on the grass and wept. She raised her head to the sky. Mommy. The soul-crushing scream rose above the flames and vanished into the sky. Everyone standing around her was heartbroken by the cry. Women wiped their tears with handkerchiefs, men gritted their teeth, and looked sympathetically at the little girl's grief. People were quietly talking among themselves, watching the fire being doused. Suddenly it flared up, and I looked, and it was going up in flames. No one escaped. The firemen came quickly, but there was nothing they could do. They flooded to keep the flames from spreading to other buildings. Do we know what caused it? The cops said it was faulty wiring. Vanessa complained that the electric stove was sparking, but who'd listen to her? All dead. Good thing the girl was at school, or she would have been too. Why did the ambulance come? They thought they could save someone, but there. What a grief! I feel sorry for Isabella. Now she'll go to an orphanage. The girl sat in the grass and stared blankly at the house, tears running down her cheeks. She could not understand that she was left alone, without a home, without relatives. "Come on, sweetheart." Someone lifted her up. "There's no reason for you to sit here. Come and stay with us until the child welfare authorities get here. You must be hungry. Grandma promised me borscht." Swallowing tears, quietly said the girl, "Poor you? Poor orphan. How unlucky you are." The neighbor shook her head. Isabella followed her obediently. Her strength to cry was gone, and there was a persistent smell of burning in her nose. She collapsed on the offered sofa, curled up in a ball under the blanket, and cried quietly. "No, I don't believe it. It can't be. Mom, Dad, and the always nagging Grandma. There is no one. How can I go on living?" "You cry, sweetheart." An old woman stroked her head. "You'll feel better. God willing, everything in life will get better." She sighed heavily. The girls were fidgeting in front of the mirror, trying on dresses for the graduation ceremony. The exams were finally behind them. Isabella looked dreamily at her reflection. "I thought they would never end. Now we are free. You see, no tutors, no scheduled breakfasts, no getting up, no going to bed, but life will begin. Isabella, you're so beautiful." The girlfriend did not take her admiring eyes off the girl. "You'd say so too." Isabella looked at herself in the mirror. "I can't believe we've known each other for only 5 years." "Yes," she laughed. "It seems like a lifetime." She ran over to Kelly and hugged her tightly. "You know, as strange as it sounds, I'm glad you ended up in our orphanage. I was always jealous. You're lucky to remember your parents." "Yeah, lucky. I just remember them, always drunk. I never even knew mine. Do you remember when we were friends?" "Of course I remember." And Isabella got sad. The ritual, the new girl's registration. Everyone was laughing, and I was on the floor with a broken nose. You were the only one who stood up for me. From that day on, no one ever tried to mess with you again. Of course, because you fought like a tiger. Isabella laughed. "I'm sorry we have to break up. I'll miss you. But we'll correspond. We'll return phone calls. I'll definitely come visit as soon as I get settled, and you come too. You finally decided to go to modeling school. Haven't you changed your mind? Well, can you imagine what awaits you there?" "Yes." The girl dreamily spun around the room. "It's not for nothing that I earned my portfolio. Tried to participate in all the events. I hope they'll help me get through the competition. Yeah, with your looks, you could be an actress, not just a model. Juliet would be amazing in your performance. In our amateur talent show, you're unrivaled. Don't exaggerate." Isabella was embarrassed by the flattery. "We have a lot of talented kids here. Thanks to her, my literacy is invisible. She made me participate in all Olympiads and events. Lucky you, Isabella. You know what you want to get out of life?" "Well," Isabella hugged her friend. "Why are you so sad? We'll be fine, and you'll find yourself. Shall we go to the auditorium? They're giving out diplomas now. They say Wilson has prepared such presents for us. I can't wait to see them." The girls went to the auditorium that were already in full swing handing out certificates. "Look," whispered in my friend's ear. "Wilson here at the age, and yet nothing like that. Attractive and in good shape, his peers have long since grown their bellies, and this one is watching himself, and still that walker, not a single beautiful woman will not miss." The girl laughed. "And still not married. I'd like to see the one he will marry. Who is she, anyway?" Isabella asked, looking at the tall, broad-shouldered man with the piercing look in his blue eyes. "You're crazy." The girl was surprised. This is the local patron of the arts. Everything we have in the orphanage is his merit. He gave us a computer class last year. Look at him, he's very handsome. Many of our girls have a crush on him. Aha, agreed Isabella. But it's old. What do they see in it? You don't know anything about men. At this age they are at their best. And what does it matter how old he is? Hotly whispered in her ear friend, if he has money, chickens do not peck. Anybody with him, like behind a stone back, a dream, not a man. How do you know? Isabella looked at her friend suspiciously. We're waiting for Isabella Davis. The girlfriend suddenly heard. Go. Isabella pushed Isabella, the girl. It's your turn. Imagine you're on the runway. Show everyone what the first beauty of our orphanage should look like. Let them gasp at your attractiveness. The girl walked to the stage. Returning to her seat, she felt the stares on her. Wilson was looking at Isabella in a way that made her uncomfortable. Why is he looking at me so strangely? She thought, and shivered under the predatory gaze of his blue eyes. It's like he's undressing me. I wouldn't want to be alone with him. Huh? She restrained herself. I thought, why would he want me? But Isabella was not mistaken. Christian was staring at her with a greedy gaze. I must have her. The man thought, gazing at the girl. Very nice. He smiled, satisfied, anticipating a night in the arms of the young beauty. Isabella felt uncomfortable, in the company of three scowling, taciturn men. Where are we going? The girl could not bear the long silence, trying not to show how frightened she was. Christian's country house. The man was silent. If you behave well, the owner will not offend. He likes obedient young ladies. The men laughed. It depends on what he expects from me. The girl thought to herself. One thing is clear, there's no point in begging him to let me go, and I'm not going to snot. Rose-colored glasses also long ago removed. I understand, not tea-drinking invited. The only thing left is to accept the situation as it is, and then think how to get out of it. It's okay, I'll be able to stand up for myself. If you cannot escape from fate, you must take a chance, try to get out of poverty, so that no Wilson in the future no longer dare to drool at the sight of me and offer all sorts of abominations. I'm strong. I can handle this old man who likes young girls. I'll make him dance to my tune. I won't give up so easily. He doesn't expect to get me on a silver platter. Life in an orphanage had taught me a thing or two. And yet Isabella was scared. Her heart clenched uneasily from the unknown. Here we are. The driver announced, stopping the car in the yard of a huge country house. Come. The guard opened the door in front of her. Christian is waiting. If you'll be good, you'll even like to be his guest. The man laughed, casting an expressive glance at her gorgeous body. Isabella entered the Wilson house and looked around in a hostess-like manner. Quite an environment, she thought. Plenty of room to spread out. Her courage was ostentatious. She tried not to think about what awaited her in the house. Isabella! Christian, opening his arms, went to meet his guest. I'm glad you agreed to accept my invitation. I'm honored. You may not believe me, but when I saw you on stage, I realized that this is the woman I have dreamed of all my life. You captured my heart from the very first minute. I promise you won't regret coming here. As I approached her, I grabbed her in his arms and began to cover her with passionate kisses. Christian. Isabella let him kiss her, and then slipped out of his embrace. Is that any way to welcome a guest? Especially a woman. She smiled slyly, though her insides trembled with fear and loathing. The man stared at her, puzzled by the question. What do you mean? Where are the flowers, the champagne? I was imagining a romantic candlelit dinner, and you immediately kiss. I didn't expect to take a complete stranger without foreplay. I'm told you're a skillful lover. We should get to know each other a little first, and save the best for later. I agree, the bouquet and confection period in our case is a little irrelevant, but still I wanted to prepare for the main event of the night. Yes, he mumbled something under his breath. I wasn't thinking. It's a very important day. I'm entering adulthood. You're my first man, and I'd like it to be beautiful. Why are you in such a hurry? I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. What are you doing? Eh? She playfully poked him in his slightly bulging belly with her finger. Did you want to save money on me? Or did you want to get me in bed right away? Is that really all you can offer me on a first date? She was on the edge of her seat, fear of the unknown forcing her to act brazenly. Isabella grabbed his tie, pulled him toward her. She didn't think that such an experienced lover would decide to dispense with the love game. The girl wrapped the tie around her fist. Christian blushed. It became hard for him to breathe. You witch, barely catching his breath? The man wheezed. This has never happened to me before. I like you, and I want you now. He suddenly grasped her slender wrists and yanked her sharply toward him. He forcefully put her on his lap and tried to kiss her, one hand holding her down, the other hand running under her blouse and squeezing her breasts. How hot you are, a delicate innocent flower. Let's go to the bedroom. I am overwhelmed with desire to possess you. Ah, you old lecher. Isabella shrieked and slapped him hard. What are you doing, bitch? Christian howled and grabbed his cheek. Taking advantage of the confusion, the girl jumped to her feet and ran a safe distance away from the excited man. She stopped by the hotly burning fireplace and grabbed a poker. Don't come near me. I'll defend myself. Don't expect to get away with this. Wilson hissed, rubbing his cheek, hot with fire. You seem to have forgotten where you are and why you're here. Don't make me angry. I can take you by force right now. Don't play with me or you'll regret it. I don't want to. She shouted, looking at him with a burning, feverish gleam in her eyes. How do you want it, my dear? He smirked. Rose petals in bed? Light music? Soft whispers and poetry reading until morning? I'm past that age. I prefer to spend my time making love. That goes without saying, but not now. The girl sat in the chair across from Christian. I propose a wager. A wager? Christian's eyes widened. Do you realize who you're offering this to? Isabella remembered a conversation with a friend who said that Wilson was a gambler. Yes, the girl declared defiantly. You're a gambler, but if you sleep with me, what's the interest? In a week at the most, you'll be satiated and kicked out of the house. Thank you if you'll pay for the first night in bed with a virgin. Naturally, I'll thank you. Insert man. No woman would accuse me of being stingy. Money, jewelry, I am a generous lover. That's understandable, but I suggest you entertain yourself in another way. Admit it. Do all your days resemble one another? Perhaps. Christian is wary. You boast that women never complain about you. I've heard that many try to get your attention and swear eternal love just for the money. You buy women, change them like gloves, and not one has ever said she loved you out of her heart and not for wealth. Yes, everyone's happy to be in your bed. I don't see where you're going with this, do you? Wilson frowned. He was beginning to be annoyed by this willful girl. But I'm not one of them, and you're not my type. That's not the kind of man I've seen around me. Isabella paused meaningfully. But if you manage to make me love you, I will become yours without any additional conditions. Do what you want with me then, and when I get bored, you can throw me out on the street. And the second condition? But if you yourself fell in love with me to unconsciousness, then I will still become yours, but only through the registration of marriage. You will make me your lawful wife, with all the consequences." Wilson laughed out loud. "Do you know that I never lose?" "We'll see about that." The girl grinned. "Don't hope that the problem is so easy to solve. But I still don't understand. What is the bet?" "You'll be mine either way." He accepted her game. She hooked him, and the excitement of the gambler flared up in him. He liked the girl more and more. That's true, but everything must be consensual, without coercion. Those are the only terms we'll agree to with you. Do you agree? To hell with you. Wilson waved his hand. But now I want to make love to you. I've already put this moment off for too long. I didn't bring you here for a heart-to-heart. He made an attempt to get closer to her. No. Isabella gestured for him to stop. Nothing can happen between us now. You yourself agreed to my proposal. For the rest of the bet, no bed. We agreed to make love consensually. Are you ready to sign off on your own loss? That doesn't sound like you. So now we're going to separate rooms and that's it? Of course. Isabella explained impatiently, like an unreasonable child. That's the point of our pact, to fall in love for real. And then either you get me or I get you. And at the end of the bet, we'll have a long married life. You won't lose anything at all. You'll only get me a little later. But you'll taste the victory when it's over. An unforgettable night in the arms of a virgin. What, Mr. Wilson, is it weak? Squinting, the girl asked. Not a bit. The man replied defiantly. How long do you suggest? 3 months. How? Enough time and your experience of seduction, young fools, to win my heart? Or have you already lost your youthful vigor? That you can't do anything but skim off the cream by sleeping with an innocent girl. And I thought I was an alpha male, a heroic lover. But in reality, alas, a banal suitor, unable to give pleasure to a woman. You know how to hit a nerve. The man was sure of his victory. Wait, you'll still be at my feet, lying at my feet, begging for love and tenderness. He thought, you'll be begging me not to leave you. Well, the offer is tempting. Christian said slowly, my life has lacked spice. The reward for the tedious 3-month wait will be an unforgettable night with you. Without doubting my success, the more I really won't lose anything. Just 3 months and you're mine. So, do we have a deal? Isabella held out her hand to the man. Deal. He shook it with his strong hand. And you yourself will be able to endure 3 months? The girl was silent. You won't. Isabella grinned to herself. I'll never love you, and I'll never be your lover. I'm not likely to win over a man so adept at lovemaking. I just need to buy time, and then I'll decide what to do next. Little fool, you don't know I've never lost a game in my life. Wilson thought, looking at the girl with eyes darkened with passion. With what pleasure he would now undress her and show her what he could do. But he decided to see what would come of the bet. And you agreed to her terms? Laughed at him Buddy when Christian, over a shot of cognac, a few days later told him about the pair. Yes, I agreed to endure these months. It's worth it. You don't realize how seductive she is, and you hope she'll fall in love with you. I do. Arrogant, Wilson declared. You know I'm an expert in female psychology. In a month at the most, she will surrender to the mercy of the winner, and I will triumph, having gained power over this little girl who thinks herself a seductress of men's hearts. In fact, I'll be her first man. Christian? His friend looked at him suspiciously. Have you fallen in love with your prisoner? Even if I do, the man said evasively, The reward will not be long in coming. She's still mine. And you're ready to take her to register the marriage? That would be fun. Wilson laughed. But I haven't decided whether I'm ready to give up my freedom for another pretty face. Although I must say she is clever. Isabella, however, has hit a nerve, Christian. Hoping to knock her down with the romance of a summer evening, he decided to organize a fancy dinner on his yacht. She wouldn't be able to resist. He told the captain, no matter how hard she tries to play hard to get, she will not be able to remain indifferent to a ride on a luxury boat. I'm sure. The captain smiled understandingly. She will reciprocate. No frills, he ordered the chef. A girl from the orphanage will feel uncomfortable. Champagne, appetizers, fruit, dessert. I got it, Christian. Anything else? Captain, have the deck decorated with balloons and musicians. I want some light music. We'll walk along the coast. The girl will love it. I got it. Captain trumped. Should we count on a night? No. For 3 to 4 hours, I think for the first time is enough, she will dance with joy. The man grinned. What has she seen in her orphanage? Let her see how rich people live. I hope she'll appreciate my impulse. No one has ever been indifferent to an evening spent on a yacht. I think she'll be no exception. The night before the party, Wilson checked everything, made sure his orders were followed exactly. Isabella, I want to invite you to dinner. The man expected that the girl would be interested in his proposal, but she looked at him indifferently and said, But I do not understand you. Rich, ready to spend money left and right. Don't know where to put it? Give it to charity. Why go out when I've made a nice dinner at home? I'm a pretty good cook, don't you think? It's not just any dinner. Barely containing his irritation, Christian said, I'm taking you for a walk along the river. Yes, Isabella couldn't hide her interest. But then that changes everything. She jumped to her feet. I'm ready. You're going to go in that. The man was surprised, looking at her worn jeans and stretched t-shirt. Why, it's not like we're going to a restaurant. Pretending to be a fool, the girl replied, and then she laughed. Relax, Christian. Give me half an hour and I'll clean myself up. You didn't take my words seriously, did you? We were not taught to behave like this in society, but I know the elementary rules of etiquette. When Isabella emerged from the room, Wilson gasped. Before him stood a gorgeous woman in a dark dress, just above the knees. Her breasts were adorned with a simple gold chain and pendant, and her thick mane of dark brown hair fell loosely around her shoulders. Light makeup made expressive, lively, green eyes. Slender legs in low-heeled shoes were striking. Christian swallowed nervously, imagining how he would caress those beautiful legs. I'm shocked. It was all he could say, wondering what kind of underwear she was wearing now. Are we going? Looking at him haughtily, the girl asked. Yes, please. The man ushered her into the car. The ship swayed impatiently on the waves. Waiting for the guests, the captain met them on deck, helped them to board gallantly, bowed his head at the sight of the girl. Good evening, he greeted. Glad to see you aboard the Aurora. Isabella, would you care for a glass of champagne? Wilson asked, waving his hand to the waiter. It will add a little romantic flavor to our evening, and also, he waved again, I love music. Do you mind? In the dim light of the lanterns, 3 musicians appeared, playing a quiet, slow song. Do you like it? The man asked his guest, taking a sip of his glass. He took out a gold bracelet from his pocket and put it on Isabella's thin wrist. I bought it for you. It's beautiful. The girl replied discreetly. Is this how you won the hearts of your mistresses? Were they ready to jump into bed with you? She glanced indifferently at her vis-a-vis. I wonder how much money you intend to spend on my seduction. I expected something more extraordinary. You obviously have problems with imagination. Did you really expect me to fall for this cheap romantic nonsense? No, I'm glad you're paying attention, but I was expecting something a little more sophisticated. I hope. She shivered, showing she was cold. We won't have to spend the night. You. Boiling, Christian. Ungrateful little brat. What have you seen in your life? Dinner aboard a yacht, with a rich man, the limit of your dreams. I can't believe you don't like it here. Why not? Isabella said calmly. I like it, but I dreamed of it when I was 14. Now I've wised up. It's all contrived, momentary. In half an hour we will finish champagne, eat dessert, and then you will try to seduce me, heated by alcohol. How vulgar, and not at all reciprocated. What do you want? Barely containing the anger ready to burst out. Wilson asked, I don't know. Isabella shrugged. Before you hit me in the heart, I want my soul to turn around and soar. For now, she stood up resolutely from the table. I want to go ashore. So everything I've arranged here, he gestured for the musicians to leave. You don't like it? I didn't say I didn't like it. The girl answered evasively. I said it was too corny to win a woman's heart. All right, then, let's go home. They said goodbye to the captain, who gave them a long and surprised look. At home, they went to their rooms. What can I seduce you with? Christian was racking his brain. What? A friend of his told him about his unsuccessful attempt to win a girl's heart. You couldn't handle a hottie. You're getting old, brother. You can't use your old tricks, can you? I should have gotten involved with her. Christian cursed in his heart. I don't know what she wants. Think of something unusual, by the way. I give you an idea. Take her abroad. She probably has not been there. The youth of today, they can't wait to go there. For a poor orphan, it's enough to impress her for a year. Why? The man's on fire. It's not a bad idea. If I get what I want, I'll thank you. You don't have to thank me. I was already wondering how it would end. It's been 2 weeks since Christian prepared the trip abroad. Isabella, smiling enigmatically, he announced, tomorrow you and I are going on a trip. I hope we won't have to take a boat this time. I can't reveal all the details to you yet. Trust me. Wear loose clothes so you'll be comfortable. I have one condition. What's that? The girl looked at him suspiciously. I'll blindfold you. Until a certain point, you must not know where we are going. Agreed? Do you have to be blindfolded? Yes, otherwise it won't be a surprise. Isabella was blindfolded and brought to the airport. Christian helped her aboard a private plane, and only there was allowed to remove the blindfold. An airplane? The girl asked excitedly, looking out the porthole. All my life, I dreamed of flying in an airplane at least once, so I managed to impress you. Let's put it this way. Isabella said discreetly, I like the fact that we're going somewhere. I'm sorry. A few hours later, Wilson informed. I have to blindfold you again. Isabella was elated in her heart. She had dreamed of traveling for so long. They crossed the helicopter. I want to see where we are. Isabella fidgeted impatiently in the seat. Be patient. The man stopped her. Soon you'll see everything. When the engine died down, Wilson untied the blindfold. Where are we? Isabella exhaled in disbelief. On the roof? We're on a rooftop in Paris, and there's dinner waiting for us. He held out his hand to her and led the way. The girl's breath was taken away by the beauty. The city was visible as in the palm of her hand. The warm wind was developing her dark hair. It was a little scary, but Isabella didn't give any sign. Callie will not believe that I saw the Eiffel Tower with my own eyes. The girl thought. Her heart fluttered with joy, but she didn't want to admit that she was overwhelmed by the incredible adventure. Christian seated her at a table. A waiter appeared from somewhere with a bottle of wine. Another brought hot food. The waitstaff tried to be discreet. "Do you like it?" The man asked, seeing how her green eyes lit up. "I can't say I wasn't moved. It's a little trip," Isabella said. "But I don't understand. Why spend money on meaningless things? I wanted to do something nice for myself. To throw so much money away for an hour's dinner? That's just stupid. Are you trying to make me angry on purpose?" The man spoke softly in a voice that didn't bode well. "Yes, anyone in your place would kiss my feet after such a trip and pray to God for me. I don't see a queue of people falling at your feet in the house." The girl sneered. "Don't forget yourself." He flared up. "I can take you back to where I got you. I'm sick of your antics. So you're admitting defeat? What are you trying to do? I'm waiting for you to admit you lost my bet. Where's that famous seduction technique you've been bragging about on every corner? All you know how to do is throw money around. Of course, what better way to impress a silly orphan than with crisp bills? That's all you're capable of. It doesn't bother me. But that's it. I'm sick of you." Christian turned white with anger. "We're going back immediately. I didn't know you were so nervous." Looking regretfully at Paris lying at her feet, the girl said, "If we are here, why not enjoy the view of the City of Lovers? If I am not mistaken, it is also called the City of Lights. The walk along the rooftops was over. The man's up. You ruined it." A few hours later, they were home. You won the bet," the man announced. "I'm trying to shake you up, and you're like an impregnable fortress under siege. Everything's wrong with you. Everything's wrong with you. You don't like jewelry. You don't like flowers because you have to throw them away. I don't understand what you want. Any woman in your place would have been happy to share my bed, but you persist in pretending indifference. I don't want to continue this game. I'm sick of it, and I don't want to see you either. So pack your things and get out of my house. Everything I gave you, keep it, and get the hell out of here. I want to forget you like a bad dream. Don't you ever set eyes on me again. If you say so." The girl shrugged her shoulders. "Don't be afraid. I won't tell anyone that you can't impress a modern woman with anything. If you say another word," clenched his fists, gritted through his teeth Wilson. "I will not vouch for myself. Will you allow yourself to hit a woman?" She made big eyes, and her heart sank into her heels at the sight of the enraged man. Isabella did not try her luck, silently packed up and left. "Well, what have you achieved?" she pondered, walking through the streets of the city. Left at a broken trough, what to do now? In the most difficult moments, she dialed a familiar number. "Hello, girlfriend. Isabella." She heard a cheerful exclamation on the other end of the line. "I was so afraid for you. I thought you weren't answering your cell phone. What if something terrible happened? I've heard such horror stories about your Wilson. He's not mine." Isabella cut it off. "Don't listen to the gossips. Tell me, how are you doing? I'm wandering around town, wondering what I'm gonna do. Christian kicked me out the door." "That's news." Kelly was amazed. "What are you thinking about? Coming to the orphanage? Or do you want to go back to him? You know, I think he fell in love with me like a boy. I got what I wanted. I made him lose his head. That's why he's mad. What about you? What about me? I don't even like him. Then what are you thinking about? Come back. You'll be welcome here. What am I going to do there? It's too late to go to college. I can't find a place to live right away. Wilson left me some money, of course, but how much is enough? And anyway, why am I showing off? Suddenly she said, "Marriage to such a man would open many doors. A modeling agency certainly wouldn't be an obstacle. Isabella, are you crazy? You don't love him. Can you imagine what it's like to live with someone you don't love? So what? I don't care if he loves me. I'm looking forward to marriage with him." "I don't recognize you, friend," the girl said sadly. "You've never been calculating." I didn't expect to be ambitious myself, but with his help I was able to realize all the plans I had made in the orphanage. Aren't you happy for me? His money will open any door. Isn't that what we dreamed of? Are you really willing to live with a man you don't love? His love is enough for the two of us." Isabella shrugged. "I've been tormented by doubts, and now that I've talked to you, I'm sure I must go back to him." "Isabella, come to your senses," wailed her friend. "I know what I'm doing. I'm thinking more rationally now than ever. Bye. Thanks for listening." Isabella hurried home. She hesitantly opened the door, afraid of being ostracized, and reappeared. Wilson was sitting at the table. A bottle of whiskey stood beside her, almost half empty. "And that's you?" The man looked at her with a cloudy stare. "Why did you come here? To make fun of me?" "Yes, you failed. Who doesn't? I came to tell you that I've agreed to marry you." An unexpected decision. He grinned wryly. "I lost, didn't I?" "If you remember, there was a second part to the bet. If you fall in love with me, we go to register the marriage. You do love me, don't you?" "What does that change?" "It changes everything. I agreed to be your wife. You haven't changed your mind about marrying me, have you?" "Change your mind?" Christian sobered up immediately. "Yes, I've been dreaming of calling you my wife for months." He reached into his jacket pocket and took out a gold ring with a large diamond. "You see, I even bought a ring for my future wife. I didn't think it would come in handy so soon." He stood up, walked over to Isabella, took her hand, and put the expensive ring on her ring finger. "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Isabella answered decisively, though it felt as if she had jumped into a whirlpool. "Isabella, hello!" Hear the woman in the phone, a familiar voice of a friend. "Hello!" Sobbing Isabella answered. "Are you crying?" "Kelly was worried. I hate him." The woman confessed. "He ruined my whole life. He hit me." "Again?" Terrified, exclaimed the girlfriend. "Yes," Isabella cried. "He came in drunk. I just asked him where he'd been all night, and then he started. He yelled that it was none of my business, and then he hit me. Good thing my son didn't see. I don't understand what happened to him. You always said he loved you." "He did, but then it went away, and it all started when I had Brian. He still can't forgive me for finishing college, and I wanted to study. I wasn't going to bury myself in housework. He didn't like it. Good for you for not giving in and finishing your degree, even if it was by correspondence. It's a popular specialty, finance and credit. If something happens, you can always provide for yourself and your son." That's when we started to have disagreements. He was jealous of every pillar. You should have seen how mad he got when I hired a nanny for our boy so I could study. That's when he started hitting the bottle. He'd get drunk. He'd get out of control. The first time he hit me was when I accused him of cheating. You should have heard the way he screamed. I thought he was gonna kill me. Since then, he's never been shy about laying a hand on me. I don't envy you. I think I'm happy. I never felt happy, and now I don't feel happy at all. Alcohol has changed him beyond recognition. No trace of his former love for me. He's disappeared from home more and more often. I know for a fact that he spends his time in the company of strange women. Do you know how disgusting it is to see him with lipstick on his collar? Are you going to put up with that? No, of course not. I kept quiet for a long time, hoping he'd come to his senses, but every year it gets worse. How does he run the firm? That's the point. The firm was starting to die. I realized if I didn't take over, we'd go bankrupt sooner or later. You're doing great. You're gonna do great. Yeah, but I've never worked a day in my specialty. So what? Prove to him and to yourself that you're worth something. You were the smartest among us. You can do it. Isabella puzzled over which side of the firm to revitalize. The first thing she decided to do was to talk to her husband about her son. Christian, I need to consult with you. Having had a moment when he was relatively sober, the woman spoke. What do you want from me? He was irritated, his head ached, he wanted a drink, but Isabella had locked herself in the study with him and wouldn't let him have one. Give me a drink, demanded the man. No, the woman said firmly. Let's talk first. You didn't get anything mixed up. What are you doing bossing me around? Have you forgotten where you belong? I might remind you, if you don't listen to me now, we both risk the abyss. She bravely endured his ominous stare. Well, speak, yes, quickly. I want to send my son to study abroad. What on earth are you talking about? The Christian burst into a fit of rage. I will not give my consent. You'll have to agree. Isabella said calmly, I'm sending him away because I don't have the opportunity to pay much attention to him. Explain? If you don't know, our firm's business is bad. You don't have time to deal with it. You've had other interests lately. The woman sneered. None of your business. Christian snapped at her. I'm fed up with you. Do you think I've forgotten that you decided to study without consulting me? My knowledge will come in handy now. I want to try to keep our firm afloat. What? The man laughed. You. What do you know about business? Without me, you're nothing. If I want, our business will go up, and you take care of the house and the child, and do not interfere where you are not asked. Right now, I need to intervene. I demand that you authorize me to sign documents. On what grounds do you demand it? On the grounds that I'm your lawfully wedded wife. You're going to ruin the firm. We won't lose anything. It'll be dead soon enough, and if I can save the business, fine, to hell with you. You've already succeeded once with me. The man snorted. Call a notary, I'll issue a permit. After all, I can always cancel all contracts. I think you won't have to blush for me. And Isabella began to master. Christian at first freaked out, and when he realized that his wife gradually began to get everything, sang blackly of his own impotence. How many times? The woman was indignant. You drink every day. I need your help so much. Why? You're doing a great job already. But you're experienced, you know the firm inside and out, and I have to learn everything all over again. I told you couldn't do it. I can handle it. Isabella was stubborn. Just don't drink, please. She had no idea that a healthy-looking man could fall victim to an insidious disease. One night she stayed late at work. Why is it so quiet at home? Isabella wondered as she entered the living room. Christian, where are you? Did you go to bed already? I need your advice. I think I've figured out why things aren't going well. She looked into the kitchen. Her husband was nowhere to be found. She opened the bedroom door and was horrified. Christian, what's wrong? Isabella rushed to her husband, who was lying on the floor with his arm tucked under him. Christian, don't frighten me. The man mumbled, writhing in pain as his wife tried to lift him up. Christian? Isabella cried, startled by the realization. You're having a stroke. Wait, I'll call an ambulance. She called the doctor, asked the guards to move her husband to the couch. Unfortunately, you're right, Christian is having a stroke. Confirmed my worst guesses, doctor. His right side is paralyzed. I'll prescribe therapy, of course, but whether it'll make a full recovery, I can't say. We don't know exactly how long it was before you found him. The outcome of the disease depends on that. Doctor. Isabella grabbed the man's arm fearfully. I beg you, don't tell anyone that Christian is paralyzed. If partners and competitors find out about his condition, our business will be ruined. I'll repay you whatever you say, and I'll pay you for your silence. Good. The doctor looked at the woman in surprise. It's up to you. You're in shock now. We'll talk later. One more favor. Help me find a professional nurse for him. That won't be a problem. I promise I'll find the best one. What am I supposed to do now? Pray to God and don't give up hope. Christian, young man, he'll do fine. Isabella is immersed in business. Not a living soul knew that Christian lay a vegetable in their big house. Only the nurse and the cook were allowed to see him. Isabella. One day the secretary informed her, a rival firm wants to see you. What is it? Isabella felt a chill go through her. They didn't say, but they've set up a meeting for tomorrow at the cafe. Well, let them know I'm ready to meet. Oh, and tell the chief accountant I'm expecting 6 months' worth of returns. Half an hour later, the chief accountant showed up. Isabella, he began. I don't understand why you're digging through old reports. Chuckling to himself in a mustache, the man asked, why should such a pretty head have to bother with such dull figures? Christian, check them. I don't think you'll find anything interesting there. I'm interested. Trying not to lose her composure, the woman replied. To understand why lately we've had lucrative deals fall through, why the materials we partially paid for don't arrive on time. You can answer me these questions, can't you? Well, my dear, stretching words and hinting that she knows nothing about the affairs of the construction company, said the chief accountant. It happens, sometimes deals are broken and suppliers let down. It's all business. I need a full report and analysis of the working firm. If you can't give clear answers to my questions, I won't keep you. You're firing me. The man's eyes widened in surprise. I do not need people who do not cope with their duties, and also let you openly laugh at the head of the firm. You're not the head of the firm. As long as my husband is sick, I am the head of the firm. If you don't want to follow my orders, the door's over there. Do you understand? Instead of helping me to save the firm, you're sticking your fingers in my wheel. Christian is sick, and you're happy to tear up his life's work, you ingrates. My husband has done so much for you. I see you get a good salary, go, work, and that by the evening, the report was on my desk. Isabella said firmly. Shocked by her rebuff, the chief accountant silently went to his office. Can you imagine? The man was indignant. She told me off like a boy. I've been working in this company for 20 years, she, without a year a week, and already in full command. Who is she anyway? Supported his colleague. We have never seen her before in our lives. They say she has not worked. How will she be able to save the company? Did Christian buy her diploma? Yeah, someone gets gold, but she gets a diploma. With that kind of knowledge, she shouldn't be in business. How did she manage to marry Christian? He was a confirmed bachelor. Don't you know how girls like that get married? With a figure like that, a face like that, you could seduce anyone. I can't wait for Christian to come back to us. I know in my heart she'll bring the firm to a standstill. I wonder how she'll sort out the accounts. She probably only knows how to spend money. Why are you going after her? Isabella's got an advocate. Let her try, see if it works out. Christian will be back, and her competitors aren't dormant. You mark my words, they'll try to get their hands on the firm. The next day, Isabella came to the cafe to meet with a representative of a rival firm. What did you want to tell me? Without further ado, the woman asked, "How's your health, Christian?" "By your prayers. I don't think you asked me here to ask about Christian's health. Tell me what you wanted to say." "I don't have much time." "It has come to our attention," the man spoke softly, "that your firm has been experiencing some difficulties in recent months. We'd like to help." "Help how?" "We'd like to buy your firm out of your problems." "Why would a pretty woman like you take on a huge business? You don't know much about construction, to put it mildly." "Yes, things are a little rough right now, but it's only temporary." Barely restraining, ready to burst out of emotion, said Isabella, "We are not going to sell the business. Christian is seriously ill. Will he be able to return to the management of the company?" "Don't doubt it. He is already on the mend. Perhaps we could meet him then and talk things over. Maybe he'd be interested in our offer. He's got his health to worry about, and the problems at work could aggravate his illness. Shouldn't you be so worried about my husband's health?" "The doctors are doing all the necessary procedures to get him back on his feet. And by the way, they don't recommend disturbing him. As I said, we have no plans to sell the firm. My husband is in the loop, and I'm coordinating with him. As far as I'm concerned, the business is in a critical state, and we're offering a good price." "No, don't persuade me. My husband will soon get back on his feet and figure things out on his own, but in the meantime, I'm doing a good job of running the firm. I hear the employees don't trust you very much. I wonder how you know so much about our firm." "Oh, I get it. There's an inside man on the payroll." "Let's not talk about that." The man avoided answering. "If you'll excuse me, I have to go." Isabella got up from the table. "We have nothing more to talk about, so you'll consider our offer?" "I won't be able to offer such a favorable price next time. My answer is no." Isabella flew to work. "We have a mole. How did I not realize?" she thought. "That explains everything. My job is to find it, and the sooner the better." She meticulously studied every document, even taking her work home. There in silence, she worked easier than under the gaze of subordinates, who frankly laughed behind her back, skeptical of her ability to pull the firm out of a series of bad deals. Imagine that. She complained to her friend. "They don't take me seriously." "No wonder." Callie laughed. "With the way you look. Who's gonna believe you're good at accounting?" "That you're so smart. I have to find the mole, or our competitors will be working ahead of us. Think, analyze, concentrate, and then everything will work out." And Isabella, day after day, got deeper and deeper into her work. "Explain it to me, please." Looking at the contracts, she asked the chief engineer, "How come we refused to build a shopping center on such a profitable site?" So their geodesist surveyed and concluded that the soil is not suitable for construction. "Then why did the competitors start construction on this very territory?" "I don't know." The man was embarrassed. "Who made the decision not to build?" "That's how He stopped talking. "The address of the surveyors who did the report." "So He hesitated." "That's right. Their firm closed down." "How is that possible?" "Why are you being so secretive? Get me the chief accountant right away." "He paid for the work done, right?" "He must know the address of the company." The chief accountant entered the office cautiously, explained how it happened that the firm, which made a conclusion about the state of the soil on the site on which they planned to build a shopping center, closed immediately after signing the papers. "Give me its address. I'll go to deal with it myself." "So know the address?" mumbled the chief accountant. "I wonder how many plots we lost because of this fake firm." The men looked at each other in silence. "You both immediately write a letter of resignation." Isabella ordered quietly but firmly. "You have no right to fire us." The chief engineer shrieked. "We were hired by Christian. Don't you dare poke me. I'm in charge of personnel here now. Get out, both of you. Isabella, the receptionist came flying in. How could you fire the most responsible employees? Christian wouldn't allow it. Christian didn't realize that these responsible employees had recently started working for the competition. Simply put, they were selling out, betraying their boss. If you don't agree with my decision, I will quickly find a replacement for you. Isabella looked at the girl expectantly. She shamefully kept silent. That's fine. Now you need to find replacements for these two honorable people. It is better if it will be found among our employees. Okay, I understand, but what should I tell the staff? I'll figure it out. The girl left, and Isabella took a deep breath, then got up and went to the conference room. Gather me the heads of departments in accounting. I need a lawyer immediately. Right away. The secretary looked at Isabella with respect. 10 minutes later, everyone was gathered in the hall. I fired 2 employees. After a thorough investigation of the firm, it turned out that they were working for competitors. Now I believe our business will be more successful. I need your support. Christian has stepped aside for now. I'll need time to sort things out. If anyone is unhappy with the woman at the helm of the firm, they can report it immediately. The rest of you, I demand full commitment. If you have any candidates in mind, I don't mind reviewing their resumes. Any questions? Then let's get to work. The employees came out of the meeting puzzled. So much for the model. They marveled. And we laughed at her, but she was so clever. Even Christian could not find the moles, and she quickly identified them. So how could those who started the firm with him be suspicious? Don't get too excited before the competition finds out Christian's doing badly. If no one tells, maybe it'll be all right. But the competitors weren't dormant. Wilson's business was too tasty. They were getting closer and closer to the firm, probing for weaknesses. Isabella realized their lost interest was temporary. Isabella. One day, a secretary came flying into the office. I tried to stop them, but you shouldn't try to stop me. Pushing the secretary away, a handsome young man entered the office with a brisk stride. Isabella noted his lean figure, thick, dark hair, and brown eyes that glowed with mockery. He sat down in the chair uninvited. It's nothing to worry about. The woman calmed the secretary. I'll take care of it. Who are you? She asked as the door closed behind the girl. My name is Charles. I'm offering to sell me your firm. What makes you think I'm going to sell it? I'm aware of your problems. You're not the first to know my problems, but I'm the first to tell you we're going to get this thing back on track. If you have no more questions for me, please leave the office. You're interfering with my work, or I'll have to call security. I know Christian is paralyzed. He can't go back to work, and you don't know anything about construction. I'm amazed at your knowledge. Isabella looked mockingly at the intruder, but her heart clenched with fear. But Christian will be fine, and I'm not bad with finances for your information. I'll make sure you can't sign any lucrative contracts. Are you threatening me? In return, when Christian comes back to the firm, and he will, you'll be in trouble. We have a good reputation. You will not be able to ruin the business. If you do not leave, I will dig up dirt on you. I've already got material on how you've been diverting customers away from us through front men. I'll make it public. Are you willing to risk it? You bet your ass I will. Christian will back me up. He knows everything that goes on around the firm. If you try to destroy us, I won't stand by and retaliate. Bitch, the man hissed. It was nice to meet you. The woman smiled through force. She was nervous, her lips trembling. I dare not delay you any longer. I'm leaving, but I'll be back. Good riddance. Left alone, Isabella, without strength, leaned back in her chair and cried. "Isabella, are you all right?" Alarmed, her secretary asked, entering the office after the guest had left. "Would you like me to make you some tea?" "Thank you, I'd appreciate it." "And you are good," the secretary said, putting a cup with steaming tea. "No one believed that you could manage the firm." "I didn't believe it myself," tiredly replied the woman. "I had to learn no one knows what will happen to us next. I will not be left alone for a long time, these businessmen. You have successfully won the first battle. I think this is just the beginning. How much do I miss Christian? He's been in a borderline state for almost a month. There was a phone call. Isabella?" The woman on the phone heard the excited voice of the nurse. "Christian, he's awake." "Roger, on my way." "What's wrong?" the secretary asked, seeing the change in her face. Christian came to his senses. "I'm leaving now. Don't tell anyone yet." Isabella hurried home. She didn't know how she saw her husband and was afraid to meet him. "Are you here?" He turned his head at the sound of the creaking door. Christian spoke slurred. Isabella rather read his lips what he said. He was pale, a wry grin on his face, saliva flowing helplessly from the corner of his mouth. "I'm glad you've come to your senses." She crouched carefully beside him on the bed, wiped his chin with a napkin. "Leave us alone," she asked the nurse. "How are you?" "There is no more of me, just a semblance of a human being." The man tried to smile. His face twisted even more. "What about the firm?" "Did you manage to sell it?" "I managed to save the firm." "You did?" Christian's eyes flashed first with bewilderment, then surprise, then joy, then tears. "I didn't believe in you. I was sure we were ruined." "Think about it. How could I let everything you've built up over the years go to waste?" "How did you do it?" "I scrutinized the documents and found the moles." "Who?" The man marveled. "Who are they?" "Your main assistants." "I don't believe it." "It's a good thing I didn't have an old friendship with them. I couldn't trust anyone, so I evaluated everyone with a cold head, and that's how I found the traitors. And our business immediately went better. The staff found in the firm, people responsible, most importantly, they believed me. It was difficult to shut the mouth of competitors. They were ready to swallow us, but it was not to be. I am not one of the fearful. I remember." Christian grinned with difficulty. "I was able to fend off the first 2 attacks. The woman was silent, but we hope for your recovery. That you've come to your senses is a good sign." "I'm not deceived." He looked at his wife carefully. "And I realize my present condition is only a temporary improvement. I feel I don't have much time left." "Don't say that." Hotly, Isabella exclaimed. "You'll make it." "No, I'm done for. I'm not getting my hopes up." He closed his eyes and was silent. "Tell me, did you love me a little?" he asked, after a moment's pause, looking pitifully at his wife. "Don't lie to me. I want to know the truth." "No," quietly confessed the woman. "I never loved you." "I knew I felt you didn't love me. But I had hoped so much to be wrong. You're legendary in business circles, even have your own admirers." "Ah," she picked up on Charles' mocking tone. "I thought you were here to take over the firm again. I have another suggestion. Why don't we merge our firms? I'm doing fine. I don't need anyone's help." "Isabella." Charles came very close to her, handed her flowers. She buried her face in them, savoring the fragrance. "I liked you right away, that memorable meeting." "I didn't expect to be rebuffed. I was told you were a beautiful doll with no brains, but I realized from the first minute that you were a smart and confident woman. I was afraid to admit even to myself that I was in love. You know, it happens, but you were married at the time, and then the funeral. I didn't want to be intrusive. I decided to wait, but now you're free. Why can't I tell you that I like you? And you come to me so easily after the threats I heard from you in my office? Forgive me, I'm ready to beg your forgiveness. At the time, I thought I was doing the right thing. In the fight against the competition, all means are good. I'm sorry. I realized long ago that I was wrong. You have a good tongue. Isabella laughed. It's the excitement, Charles confessed. What is it? Can I expect reciprocation? Charles, the woman grew serious. I do not want to give you hope, so I confess at once, I am not ready for a serious relationship. I've had some unfortunate experiences in married life. I'm just now beginning to live, to breathe. I was deprived of all this for many years to break free from dependence on my husband. It cost me a lot of labor and nerves. You can't imagine what I've been through. To go back into the care of another man? No way. I assure you, I won't restrict your freedom. I wish I could believe you, but I can't. Is there any hope that someday you'll reciprocate? I don't know. We don't know each other very well. Well, let's get to know each other. Charles came to life. I'm inviting you to a restaurant tonight. No need. Isabella headed for the car. I like to have dinner at home with my son. How do you feel about children, by the way? I didn't know you had a son. The man was surprised. Christian never talked about him. He probably never said anything about me either. The woman grinned. Yes, I have a son, and you'll have to earn his favor if you're going to court me. Did I scare you? So you'll let me court you? I'm ready. The persistent suitor has perked up. Invite me to visit. I want to make sure that you are not only smart and beautiful, but also a good cook. If that's the case, then you're definitely my woman. Isabella got into the car, started it, carefully placed the bouquet next to her. The man looked at her with regret. Suddenly, she rolled down the window. If you want, come to visit me on Sunday afternoon. I'll introduce you to my son and feed you lunch. I'll definitely come. Charles exclaimed joyfully, looking at the car in which the amazing woman was sitting. I won't let you go anywhere. He promised. I will do everything I can to make you learn to trust again. My love can warm your soul. I promise you that we will be happy.